good.
I would say that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and start 1 minute early with the announcements. For those watching tonight's meeting via Diligent Community, the meeting is available live stream via the Diligent Community platform. Public comment is accepted in person. A link to the video will be posted to the Diligent Community website immediately following this evening's meeting. To improve sound while listening to the meeting, please turn up the volume on your computer and turn up the volume in the Diligent Community site. The meeting packet for tonight's meeting is located on the Diligent Community site. For those attending tonight's meeting, bathrooms are located in the foyer through the double doors. The emergency exits from the room are through the double doors or at the back of the room. If you haven't already, please sign the white attendance sheet on the table in the back of the meeting room. Please mute your cell phones and related devices. To improve the quality of the sound, there's a boom microphone right over here directed towards the commissioners. The microphone will pick up all other audience noise. So if you can keep those to a minimum, that would be great. If you find it difficult to hear, even with the muted noise and all the other efforts, please feel free. I'm going to invite you to move to the front row. Please feel free to move forward. Please feel free to move your chair forward. I'm going to borrow from the president of the Village of Winnetka, who made a couple really good comments at the beginning of his meeting, and I'm just going to go ahead and borrow from Chris Ritz. This is a bit of a reset for us, but I think that his words were very wise and they seem to be very effective. So this is not a sporting event, so there's no clapping or booing. We are a community coming together to discuss difficult issues in a civil and respectful fashion. It's a business meeting, and we ask for your cooperation to maintain decorum. Please be considerate and refrain from interrupting board members or other speakers. I'm going to call the meeting to order on July 20th, 2023. It's a committee and regular board meeting. May I have a roll call?
Commissioner Hemmings.
Here.
Commissioner James.
Here.
Commissioner Rapp.
Here.
Commissioner Root.
Here.
Commissioner Tyson.
Here.
Commissioner Lesson.
Here.
Commissioner Kodo.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Changes to the agenda? Any changes?
Out of respect for our wonderful guests, I wondered if we could have the film that I understand Jake is going to present and tell us all about your trip at the beginning of the meeting. Would that be possible?
I think we could do it right after public comment. Is that okay?
Whatever.
Yeah, let's do it right after
I'm
public comment.
excited to hear it.
Yeah,
I'd move it up if you want.
you move it up?
I don't know, Jake, you
Any
ready?
objections to moving it up?
I'm ready.
No
Okay.
objections.
No
All
objection.
right, perfect. Let's go ahead and move it right after changes to the agenda. It will be our
Thank
first
you.
change to the
Thank
agenda.
you.
Perfect. Okay. Jake, this is a presentation by, yes, go ahead. Why don't you give a preamble? And it was originally set up in communication, so we're welcoming Jake Claybrook to present a video on the Ghana Playground Project. Go ahead.
I want to welcome Jake Claybrook, as well as the other participants in the recent trip to Ghana. You may recall that the Winnetka Park District last year agreed to donate the Nick Corwin playground equipment to Future Builder Scouts, a scout-like organization in the Western Region, Ellenbell District of Ghana. Jake's Eagle project was to disassemble all of the equipment, to label it, package it, find replacement parts, tools, instructions, a very heavy lift, pack it all up, put it in a container, and ship it to Ghana, where it would be reconstructed adjacent to the Future Builder Scout Library. We, 11 of us, took the trip to Ghana on June 16th, returning June 27th. This is the rainy season in Ghana. 4 years ago we were there and we had terrific weather. This year, not so lucky. It was an extraordinary effort. despite the very adverse conditions. And our final day, which was supposed to be a day of rest, was, by the grace of God, a blue sky day, and we worked till 6 o'clock at night to accomplish this project. I want to recognize Jake's preparedness as a Boy Scout. There is absolutely no way that, despite the contractor and the willing volunteers in Ghana, that they would have been able to reassemble that playground equipment without Jake's preparedness, without Teresa's knowledge, firsthand knowledge. It was a great team effort, and also without Costa's knowledge and insight for giving us great direction, great guidance, and it really was the grace of God that we got it done. So I am so proud of Jake, and this was like a second and third Eagle project for him to do, to undertake this and persevere despite great hardship. So Jake, thank you, and take it away.
Hello everybody, I'm Jake Claybrook, and I'm just going to go over a bit of the trip and like what we did.
You're going, there you go.
Okay, so when we arrived in Ghana, this was the state of the lot. So what we were told that it was going to be flattened and we were going to have a flat ground to work on, and that was not the case. There was a big slant in one direction, and it was very rainy the entire time. And so what they were doing with all the equipment was just keeping it in the library for the months that it was just sitting there. So it sat in the library for a very long time before we came. So this is our team. I have a bunch of the team members are out here in the audience. And we worked all week, many of the days in the rain. And on the last day, we worked for a very long time to put it together. And on the right is a picture of a bunch of the volunteers in front of the completed playground. So this is what, when we left, this was the state of the playground. This is exactly how it looked like at Nick Corwin. And as you can see, it's all put together there. And this is, we were recognized, this playground was recognized by the king of the district. And when we went, he thanked us and thanked me a lot for bringing the playground. And the picture on the left is the king and all the chiefs of the district together with us. And they thanked us so much for putting the playground there and getting it to Ghana. On the right, is me, my mom, Mr. James, and Kofi and the king in front of the completed playground. And then do you have the video?
Yep.
And so this video will show how used the playground was in the quick time that it was put up. This video was taken a week ago, and I think the playground has gotten more use in 1 week than it ever has in Winnetka. As you can see, children are very happy to have the playground, and the community is so thankful that it is completed and put up. And
I think we have one more video too. Yeah. Hang on.
Yeah, you can see there's a lot of kids, and every day after school, they all go there and to the library to hang out, and because that's what they do after their school. So I want to thank again the Park District for donating this playground and making it all happen. And I want to thank everybody, especially Mr. Katulis for helping me put this together, and Mr. James and all the volunteers who came with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice. Someone said once in one of the public comments that the job of the Park District is to bring the joy and the fun, and it's really nice to see the joy and the fun. So, thank you. That's a happy note to start on. Okay, we're going to return to our regular agenda, which is the financials. Jim?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Widow. The June financials show that we are in good shape. We have an operating revenue surplus of about $1.6 million, a little over $1.6 million, 1660536. Revenues are good. Ironically, less than a week ago, I forecasted that the second installment of property taxes would be on time, and just yesterday, Cook County announced it was going to be delayed in the second half of the property tax disbursement. Good news is we should receive those a month earlier at the end of this year, so they won't roll over into 2024. They're going to be paid by December 1st, which is either in the middle of December, so they will be due into 2023. But there's a little hiccup in the revenue flow nonetheless.
Yes.
All told, the revenues are doing well, despite the lack of revenue from the golf course, which was to be expected. Operating revenues are on track. We're slightly below what was budgeted for operating revenues, which is a good position in which to be. And operating capital expenditures are low, as are major capital expenditures. We'll start to see some of those numbers tick up as the warm weather work, the invoices start to arrive and the bills start to be paid. So you'll see some of those bills in June, July, and in August as well. I do want to make a quick note on the May financial report. You may have noticed a slight dip in our reserves in May. We had a number of semi-annual debt service payments that were due at the end. They're due June 1st every year, so we paid them in late May. Now, normally, those payments are offset somewhat by golf revenue. May is usually the first month of significant revenue from the golf course. This is the first year we do not have significant revenue from the golf course in May. So the revenues took a bit of a dip, but they rebounded in June. So generally speaking, we're in good shape financially.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the May and June 2023 financials?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, a roll call.
Commissioner Hemmings?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Proto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Excellent. Vouchers, again, Jim?
Vouchers have been reviewed and approved by Commissioner Rapp in the month of June, from June 3rd through July 14th. We had some earlier than expected payments for medical insurance, liability insurance, and other insurance needs. So those numbers were a little higher than expected in the month of June. But the good news is that we will not be paying those in July, so those numbers will even out over time. We had some capital project expenses, and our payroll expenses a little higher because we're paying seasonal workers now, which we're not doing prior to May and June. So we have for the vouchers.
Excellent. May I have a motion to approve the vouchers for $1,274,758.19 as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Give a roll call.
You know, I actually have a comment to make on the vouchers. I just wanted to draw some attention to the Red Barn vouchers. We have a voucher for $40,000 and then two other payments for totaling $20,000. Costa and I have been working to, in my view, kind of shore up some of the backup around those payments in terms of the work. And I just wanted to put that help with discussion, as well as the Lakota contract. This is the first time that we are managing contracts for soft costs of this magnitude. This is a contract, the Red Barn contract is in excess of $800,000. And after we get through the audit report, I would be definitely interested in having some further discussion with Loudon Backenomen about what help or support they might be able to provide for us to make sure that we're managing and documenting the execution of that contract and the larger Lakota contract, and probably other soft cost consulting contracts to make sure that we're in line with what we need moving forward.
This isn't our first project, so, I mean, like Costa has done other projects, so I would count on his expertise to manage those projects.
Okay,
Yeah,
but I'm giving
yeah.
feedback
Yeah,
on the size of this particular consulting contract, that it is in excess of what the Park District has done previously. The others have been, like the Lloyd project was more of a construction-based project, and some of the other ones have been more construction-based, like the stormwater project with the village, so this is a little bit different.
okay.
So Commissioner Root, just to clarify, can you just summarize the concern in advance of our subsequent conversation that's coming up?
The invoices that we paid did not really have any backup in terms of what the work product was and the summary, so, you know, we've paid those. Certainly we've observed Matthew Wright, for example, here at some of our meetings, and I just think that for some of the other work, we cannot observe, you know, we need a little bit more backup on that. We have expended, you know, year-to-date $110,000. That's a lot.
You said supporting documents and, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Supporting documents and
And?
work product,
What does that mean, just to clarify? I don't know what that means.
drawings, reports, calculations, plans.
So, are you suggesting that the rate that we've paid the professional exceeds the degree of completion of the work?
I don't know, because we don't really have any basis on that.
If that's the nature of the concern, and we don't know whether that's the case or not, I would posit that the auditor is not the professional to address that concern. The auditor will speak for himself, but an auditor does random sampling of the financial transactions to make sure that the financial statements accurately reflect the position of the Park District.
Okay?
The auditor doesn't do forensic accounting to match whether we're paying a professional in concert with the progress of the work that they're completing. They're two different skills.
We're early in this project, so if you think that there's a better professional, I just feel that we need a little bit more guidance in this from someone with a finance background, with a CPA, with, like, this is a big project.
I disagree with that assessment.
It's fine.
The work being performed by the engineer pursuant to the contract is properly evaluated by staff. Staff works in concert with our consultants. They understand the work being completed and the appropriateness, and they evaluate the appropriateness of the invoice that's issued. They determine, and there are protocols by which we approve the invoices. I have full faith and confidence in Costa and his team that as Park District completed many millions of projects. As Christina said, this isn't our first rodeo. Costa, do you want to say something?
Sure. The piece that I think Cynthia's looking for more is to better understand the work product to see what comes out of it. In the early on development stages of what we've done thus far, there is work product that comes out, but it might not be to the level of degree which people are expecting for that cost. We're looking for those experts, the services from Matt Wright, his sub-consultants of Shabika and his Westbrook Engineering and others who work for him to complete those. So the work product that we've seen to date, with the work that was completed for the open houses that we had, the illustrations that were done there, the collaboration between Matt Wright and his team and the Lakota group and their team, changing the design detail that went into that, the engineering to support that design change, along with the cost estimates, engineering cost estimates that went through that. That's the work product that we've seen thus far to date. And the billing that shows for that through the 3 invoices that you elaborated to, the $110,000 that we paid today, is a combination of his work and his sub-consultant's work to date. The initial pieces for the initial design work, the review of the initial design work that we had previously, so that work product didn't go to waste, re-reviewing that, the edits and tweaks that we've made thus far, and several iterations of changes that have happened to that process, or the design, I should say, thus far. Because I believe that the board, for the most part, and James and Jeff, you guys kind of come in late, so you might not have seen the great work product from previous, but the evolution of change from the first initial workshop, where Matt wasn't even under contract yet working for us, because that was part of the bid process, to the work as completed of late. That design change and iteration has changed several times based on the information that we've heard from the community, the input that we've received, and the input to less is more, subtle approach, take back, preserve the bluff. Those are all the design things that changed. So there's not a lot of work product to date that was illustrated or given to the board per se, but those are the countless hours that I've spent on the phone in Zoom meetings with Matt and his team, the work that he's been doing behind the scenes. So that's the work product that I've seen and understand. So when I look at the evaluation, and he's looking forward to put 50% of the assessed value for the Elder Lane review conceptual preliminary engineering, I can see that we're 50% of the way to our final plan design and ready to start moving into permits once we have our soil boring installed. So I believe that we're at 50%. So that's my judgment on his work product completed thus far. But there's not a whole lot of paper per se that you're looking for to have some substantive in your hand to say, okay, I can see that relates to that, and that was hours spent on that, so I really understand that. So that's where the work product might not show specifically, but I can assure you the work that's being done behind the scenes to get to the presentations, to get the designs thus far, is being completed.
No,
So
it's
you're-
just, it's a lot of money.
Agreed.
We're at 110,000.
Yeah.
This is the biggest contract that we've had for these kinds of services.
I read your emails, and I wanted to also invite at the auditing stage comments from Jim and comments from our auditors, because I've had conversations with Jim about this auditing process that I think might shed some light on your
Fabulous.
questions.
So I wanted to raise it, you know, in
Yeah.
my role as a concern.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
I'm all about checks and balances, and I have full confidence on Yocosta in your job. As I understand, an auditor does not express an opinion on the effectiveness of our internal controls. That's what I understand. But I do understand that auditors can make suggestions as to procedures to improve, and hopefully that's what we're going to discuss.
Let's
which
definitely take that
I'm
up with the
happy
auditors.
to see, but
Yeah.
again, this is a very expensive contract, and when you compare what we are paying for Red Barn with something that is happening very similar on the beach at Kenilworth, and the fact that that contract is about a third of what we are paying, and it is doing work, kind of reviewing work that has been done since April of 2021. I think it's important that we have a little additional, in other words, the plan has changed, but it's the same basic plan, what you just said.
Correct.
And then one other comment I'd like to make, Costa has shared with me that Matthew has been kind enough to come and do some pro bono volunteer services. I'd like to see how that is also being reflected, so that is notated on these invoices. The invoices themselves are extremely sketchy. There's no itemization of work product that has been delivered that I would expect, that I would like to see on an invoice. And this is, you know, we're paying Matthew about $250,000 for the first phase of review and concept. So you'd like to know what that $250,000, what services are included in that.
Sure.
Okay.
So thank you.
I'm
Just curious, I wasn't aware that the phase of work for Kenilworth took them through permit and construction documents. I didn't think it did. I thought it was just conceptual design work.
The conceptual design work is a fraction of the $250,000 that we'd be paying Red Park for
We'll
a beach.
understand, but you
But we're
know,
not keeping
Kenilworth's
hearing
total
it
cost isn't
together.
there, you said that, but I was just curious.
For a
Okay.
beach about the same size as Elbert Beach.
Okay, so let's,
May I comment on?
go right ahead if you want, otherwise we can save that to the audit portion, because I think the comments that you and I shared are pertinent for the audit, and will add to the observation that Caleb Simon.
Just one quick comment
Sure.
specific to Commissioner Root's evaluation of this compared to Kenilworth. I think it's important to remember that we have to go out to bid for these contracts. We only had 3 companies bid on the work that we were offering, and we took the best bid that we could find, the lowest bid that we could find. If the bid comes in higher than what Kenilworth gets for their bid, we can't.
Jim, we didn't
No,
bid. This
no.
was an RFQ, a request for qualification under the park statutes. We can't even talk about cost when we are qualifying. Attorney Simon can further elaborate on that.
Okay.
So, no.
I think the bidding process, the auditing process, and the review process are really pertinent discussions, because we do have our auditor here tonight, so he's the expert. I
Great.
really,
I agree with
not
you.
to put too much pressure on you,
Thank
but
you.
get ready,
I just want to say
sharpen
something
your
else.
pencil.
Look, the scope of work is entirely different between the
Sure.
2 projects.
Sure.
You can't just measure the shoreline distance. You have to understand the elements of the plan, and the number, as Costa said, the number of iterations. And respectfully, have you guys ever undertaken a project of this magnitude or beyond? Are you familiar? Have you ever entered into construction agreements? Have you worked with architects, engineers? Have you have that experience?
May I speak to that?
Yeah,
As an attorney,
please.
I have.
Okay.
I have been counsel working on many construction projects, including a nuclear plant in South Texas. So to answer you, yes.
Great.
And based on that experience, I would expect to see some additional documentation. Secondly, I've raised this before in meetings, and I'll raise it again. When we are contracting with a sole practitioner, a solo engineer, I want to see, what is being produced here. The other, in response to Jim's comment, the other 2 companies coming in were Baird and GCA. I always get they have a full staff of complementary disciplines, PhDs, and their rates. When I look at the rate at Kenilworth, and I look at the rate of $225 an hour for Red Bar, I want to tie this down for the benefit of our taxpayers. And so I've said enough, we'll wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we're ready to take a roll call on the vouchers, and we have 2 items that we'll go ahead and address specifically, not to put too much pressure on you, sir, for the auditors. Okay. May I have a roll call for the vouchers?
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmings?
Yes.
Commissioner Kodo?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Thank you. We'll be moving on to remarks from visitors. Okay, so remarks from visitors is your opportunity to address the board on any issue. When called upon, come to the center position in front of the commissioners and stand at the podium. Speak loudly into the microphone. We have a new microphone with a wired version, which should be a more sturdy setup. State your name for the record. Speak directly to the board. Please keep all comments close to 3 minutes. It's not a question and answer forum, so please don't expect a response this evening. If you prefer to share your comments in writing, you may use the comment cards, which are available at the back near the sign-in sheets. Any Park District staff member will accept your card to be shared with the board. We all take notes during public comment, and we invite you to stay if possible, because we often address the issues raised during public comment as we work through the agenda. So if you're looking for an answer, it might make sense to stay through the meeting, because there are some inaccuracies that come up, and we can address those in that fashion as we work through the agenda. Okay, remarks from visitors. Raise your hand if you'd like to speak, and you can come up. First row, second row, third row. Susie. Thank you, Costa.
Good Good evening, and I'm glad to see you continuing to try to improve your audio-visual. I seem to be the test case each time.
You're the brave one, thank you.
Well, I'm sorry to have to make the comment that I'm making tonight, and it's not policy, well, it is related to policy and procedure. A little before 5 o'clock this evening, I was down at Lloyd, where I just parked in the handicap spot and watched for 5 or 6 minutes, just to see what's going on. And I was not very happy when I saw two children, young people, probably I would guess between 7th and 10th grade, male and female, having races from the sand to the water and diving in head first. This is not what any of us want to hear relative to the incidents that have taken place recently. And my request is that you consider having one of the attendants where there's 3 or 4 gathered around the little, what I call the Coke stand, because the big Coke sign is out there, but the attendant booth. There should be somebody there, because as you all probably are aware, there is a fair bit of swimming going on down at the South Cove. And where I was observing this was at the North Cove, but the attendants, there was one boat coming in and out, and the attendants were just watching it or just gathered around the attendant booth. So I'm just requesting that you really consider having an attendant just be located, maybe an hour at a time, whatever would be appropriate, just rotate them. But to point out that you're not supposed to swim, just go down there to swim in the cove, and for goodness sakes, not be on the rocks and not be running in and diving in head first. That's something that's just very uncomfortable for me to watch. I'll just leave it at that for this evening. But thank you for attempting to make everything here and having more rows in the audience area.
Hope springs eternal.
Keep trying. Take care.
Would anyone else like to speak? Yes, Mary.
Not supposed to touch this now, right?
Can if you'd like to.
This one is touchable. Yep, go right ahead.
Okay. Susie and I did not talk before, and I have some similar kind of comments, but I agree with what she's saying. I'm at Lloyd quite often, and it's not a swimming beach, from what I understand. It's a boating beach, but you do see them swimming, and I don't blame them. I have a concern more about the security of some of our Winnetka beaches. It is difficult, it always has been this way. Very difficult to keep 5 public beaches safely operating so that people are able to enjoy Winnetka's most coveted asset. Elder Beach has been closed for several years due to needed repair. It apparently is a known fact among beach goers that Elder Beach has no attendance or security. People flock to the pier that is needing repair. Elder Pier is such a favorite place at Elder Beach for people of all ages. The beach has very easy access for a beach that is not open to the public for safety reasons. I am proposing at the very minimum, the security that is provided at Tower in the evening be extended to control and look at all our beaches. And because of the repair needed at Elder, certainly that should be a no-brainer. The entrance to Elder on the south side of the park is a very easy access. At the very least, this entrance should not be open and welcoming. Block the drive with secure fencing. You can count on the number of times that help has been requested for various incidents at this beach. It seems every week the paramedics are there. Often because of the ease of parking and no attendance, this beach and park will have a multitude of people gathering. It is gratifying to see people enjoy our open space and beaches, but not at the cost of safety. Winnetka takes pride in knowing that our beaches are open and our open space are considered to be the best of the best. Reading in the news of tragic incidents and accidents at our lakefront, it is not publicity that this board should want. Please make Ellsworth a safe place for all to enjoy. Open the beach safely, or have security to warn people that the beach is not safe. Thank you. Can I give this to you?
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Joanna?
I'm not gonna read this out because my voice is going, but these are like, I wrote up some principles, I think, that you should consider for the lakefront. Just bring them over to, it's a kind of a working, opening conversation type thing. So, I don't have my name on these.
While Joanna's writing, is there anyone else who would like to come forward and speak? Come on up.
Yes, this is the best.
Thank you.
Rick Duran, Sunset Road. I came with no preconceived comments. Already amazed in the first 10 minutes. So let me use my time to state the obvious, the level of we'll get to the level of due diligence. If a consulting contract is a fixed fee contract, then you need to determine percent complete in each invoice to figure out what to pay them as a progress pay. Every consultant, most contractors, most consultants would like to get paid more up front than in the back. And so it's called front-end loading in the community, community of consultants and contractors. And so you want to guard in the early months of a project not to overload payments in the front. If it's not a fixed fee contract, then it's paid on a time and materials basis, and there ought to be timesheets to back those up at billing rates that somebody accounting only with no construction background can take and figure out if the math is actually accurate. It's not unreasonable on $10,000 consultant contracts on up to ask for more documentation than the single line statement, I'm billing you X because I think I'm X all the way through the project. The level of due diligence you bring to those tells the public that you're serious about the dollars that you're trusted with you, and that your due diligence is guarded, whether they argue as to whether the title is a construction accountant or a construction auditor. That's simply in the profession, people who want to define what they do want to do and what they don't want to do. But there ought to be somebody on your contracts determining percent complete against tasks. If you have a list of tasks and if you even have a schedule, then you can add dollars to each budget, and then you're simply debating whether the schedule objective has been reached. When you get to that milestone, you get 5%. When you get to the next milestone, you get 5%. The fact that Commissioner Rapp has a concern here and the initial responses to it, I wait at the patience of the chairman for all those answers that we were promised as the meeting progresses. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Feel free to raise your hand. I don't see any raised hands. Okay, We're going to move on to approval of the minutes. Item number 6, consent agenda. Without objection, we will act on the following items with a single vote. May I have a motion to approve all minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Question. Not being a commissioner for some of these minutes, is it appropriate for us to participate in?
Yeah, did you read them?
Yes.
Yes. It's appropriate. You can abstain. That would require us to split them into 2 sections, but if you've read them and you believe that you've seen the meetings, then you can accurately vote.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Any other discussion? Shall I list out the meetings we're voting on, the minutes we're voting on? Okay. 6.1, closed session meeting minutes of May 11th, 2023. 6.2, regular meeting minutes of May 25th, 2023. 6.3, committee and regular meeting minutes of June 7th, 2023. 6.4, closed session meeting minutes of June 7th, 2023. 6.5, special meeting minutes of June 28th, 2023. 6.6, closed session meeting minutes of June 28th, 2023. 6.7, special meeting minutes of July 5th, 2023. And may I have a roll?
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmings?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Koto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Moving to communications.
Yeah, quite a number of articles in the packet. I know Denise, you and I were working on getting comment cards. I don't know if it was into the packet or were distributed to the board members, but we'll make sure that those are from the farmers market session that Eric Wesson and Christina Cotto championed. We also have a Smithsonian Institute certificate of appreciation, which was awarded to the Garden Guild of Winnetka, which is an outstanding recognition. It took quite a bit of time for the Garden Guild, kind of honchoed, if you will, by Meg O'Gara, but maybe more recognition to Greg Fields, Kelly Edwards, and the team that collaborate with Garden Guild. It's really a team effort that we're very proud of. We're also very proud of their recognition with the Smithsonian Institute. So it's been laminated, so we'll pass it around so that the commissioners can see it, but it's a pretty amazing award. So tip of the cap to the Garden Guild, and thank you, Greg, to the team, Kelly as well, and those who work on that area of the butterfly garden. Coach, to you as well, so thank you very much. That's it.
All right, perfect. Moving on to unfinished business, Sir, Lauterbach and Amann, presentation of 2022 audit findings. The presenter from Lauterbach and Amann is McCabe Thorpe. Did I pronounce your name correctly? Excellent.
Oh, look at that. Well, first off, introduce myself. My name's McCabe Thorpe. I'm an audit manager from Lauterbach and Amann. Been with Lauterbach and Amann for about 4 years, and been in auditing previously in the private sector for going out 8 years, which is crazy to believe. First off, I'd like to say thank you to Commissioner Cotto and every rest of the board for allowing me to come here and present. Also like to give personal thanks to Jim, Andy, and John for helping us with the audit. We understand that they also have a day-to-day job that's not just auditing, so the extra work and hard work that they put in to help answer our questions, helpful support is greatly appreciated. And to show success of the audit, we're going to start with the big booklet. If you open it up, you will see that
Sorry, does anybody need this next one?
No problem. Yes, so we're just going to go to the first page. You'll see right away that the Park District is an annual comprehensive financial report. And if you turn to page 6, you will see the certificate of achievement that the Park District received for excellence in financial reporting for the last fiscal year. So congratulations to the Park District for receiving this award. Moving on to page 9. This is our audit opinion, and we gave an opinion under our audit for fiscal year 12/31/2022 of an unmodified opinion. What this states is that from our audit testing, we found that the financials were free of material misstatement. This is the highest opinion that we can offer, so congratulations again on receiving an unmodified opinion. Moving to page 13. This is the start of what is called the management discussion and analysis. What these pages provide is more of a narrative of the financials, provides more of a story behind the numbers. What it does is compares, looks at high key areas, highlights them, and compares the current year to the prior year, and then allows the Park District to go in and, in their own words, explain why certain numbers increase or decrease. So I like to say it kind of gives more of a story behind the numbers rather than just hard numbers. So moving on to page 25. This is the start of your financial statement. This shows the statement of net position. So it shows the governmental activities and the business type activities. And it shows the current assets, deferred outflows, liabilities, deferred inflows, and net position or the fund balance. If you flip over to the next page, this is the statement of activities, which at a governmental activities level. In business type activities, it shows the expenditures and revenue for the year. Now, if you flip over to page 29, this might be what you're more familiar in seeing. This provides a breakout of the funds that are considered governmental activities. So this is same thing as before, the balance sheet, the assets, the liabilities, and deferred inflows. And now if you flip to page 33, once again, this is the income statement, but broken out more at a fund level. 2 items to kind of show what the fiscal year provided in regard to the fund balance is that the general fund saw an increase of about 109%, and the recreation fund saw an increase of about 22%. So it kind of shows the revenue and the expenditures, which kind of help show the gain or loss during the year. And then on page 37, same level, assets, liabilities, deferred inflows. You're all going to be experts at balance sheets by the end of this presentation. This is showing the business type, so the business type funds broken out. And then the next page is page 39. Once again, shows operating revenue, expenditures or business type by the business type funds. And then the next page shows the statement of cash flows, which is specific just for the business type. It shows the cash flow from operating activities, financing activities, to show what the beginning and ending cash and cash equivalents are. So moving on to page 43. So this is what you could consider the meat and potatoes of the audit report. This is what we call the notes to the financial statement. It provides information and detail as to how the audit was performed, how the numbers were calculated, and it goes into what the district's
accounting policy is. So now we're going to flip a big chunk to page 94, which in my opinion is kind of the best part of the report. It really gives a whole visual output of the Park District, of what was expected and what was the actual result. This really helps to show how the either gain or loss in certain funds came about. As you have 3 columns: the original, which is the original budget, the final column, if there was any amendments to the budget, and then the actual. So you can go through each expenditure or revenue to see where exactly certain revenue was higher than expected, or expenditures were higher this year than expected. And it kind of helps slowly to paint the picture of what the change in either gain or loss was during the year. And you keep flipping on, it goes fund by fund, so kind of by more detail. So that is the financial statement report. The next item that we'll be going to is a smaller booklet. It's titled the management letter. So what the management letter is items that we recommend to the district to implement so that they are operating to the best of their ability. The way that I personally like to look at these is they're more recommendations. They look at more as a positive note. You can, hey, this is an area that could be improved on, or this is a policy that, if passed, could help out. So for this year, there were 3 current year recommendations after the audit. The first 2 are more as like a heads up for the district. So there's 2 new GASB pronouncements. GASB 96, which is subscription-based information technology and arrangements. So what we will do in this next coming year, as the standard will be implemented for the district at 12/31/2023, is looking at software. If certain software that the district uses is above a material level, then it will need to be presented in the financials. But this is something that Jim and I will work on together to kind of create a list of all the software and to see if anything's material to report.
Is it, excuse me one second, is it the software, is it effective? Is it out of date? Is it secure? Or are you auditing on all 3?
So we're just auditing the dollar amounts.
Okay.
What I have seen, because so for municipalities, this goes into effect for municipalities at the 6/30/2023. So a lot of our clients that are starting now, they're actually seeing it as a benefit. They're seeing that, oh, there's a software that we're using the same thing twice, or this is an agreement. It kind of helps. One, it's for accounting reasons, but it kind of helps to catch up and clean up things too. So that's the one positive as something to come out of. But no, in regards of our testing, it is just the financial presentation. Then GASB 94 has been released. We're still waiting on more literature to come out to provide more explanation to the Park District to assist with. So we'll be discussing later on once GASB gives out more information. And to make sure everyone knows, GASB stands for Governmental Accounting Standard Board, so it's the standards that we are required to follow. The next current year recommendation is an outstanding check write-off policy. So essentially, this is just a policy for the Park District to have for checks that are open for a certain amount of years, for those to be written off and taken off the bank rec, just so there's not old checks sitting on the bank reconciliation over a year, just want to kind of clean it up and keep things clean.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are those vendor checks or are they like patron refund checks?
Be either or. It's anything that is hitting the bank statement. So anything that is, any hard check that is written. So cut a check to a vendor for X, Y, and Z on January 1st, 2023. They, as of January 1st, 2027, they still haven't cashed it. We would want a policy to kind of be in place to either remove that or have steps in place of research investigating why so vendor isn't cashing the check. So it's more just having procedures and policy in place.
I don't disagree with the need for a procedure at all. I just want to distinguish between abandoned checks from unclaimed property.
Okay. Yeah, this is, and also with recommendations for the outstanding check policy, it's GASB best practice, but it's 100% up to the board if the policy wants to be written or not. It's whatever the board thinks is best.
I'm struggling to find it in my report now, but it was like an issue on the order of, what, $18,000 or something for these?
I believe so, yes. And it wasn't in a report, that's something, once they brought this to my attention, I did the research and calculated that amount.
Okay,
So-
I feel like I read it somewhere, but
I
that
think I
was
sent
great.
it in an email when I
Okay,
originally
okay.
sent out the ACFR.
Okay,
Checks predated you in many instances.
Yes, I went back 7 years.
okay.
So it goes back to previous finance.
Okay.
Harbor and Christian
And-
Road.
Yes.
So, yeah. Is there any other questions? Oh, perfect. So then moving on, we've had 2 prior year recommendations. First one is funds over budget. This is essentially, we're required by GASB to provide this if certain expenditures, the expenditure amount for at a fund level for each fund went above what was budgeted. This can be for a handful of reasons. You know, sometimes stuff happens that you're out of your control, but it's just a requirement just saying, hey, these are the funds that were over budget, and to look at again once going through the budgeting process. And then the last one was GASB 87, which is leases, which we worked with Jim in implementing, and it has been implemented, and it will be removed from the management letter next year.
Just so you're clear, those aren't real estate leases, those are finance leases.
Yep. Awesome. So if there's questions about the park district, we can answer now. If not, I can move on to the foundation presentation.
Let's ask questions about the Park District first. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Let's take a break. I mean, I think more people are interested in the big stuff, and the foundation is a smaller piece. So I just wanted to review a couple aspects of the bidding process, the documenting process, the payment process, and then the auditing process. And I'll ask you to articulate the types of audits that you do, and then I'll ask Jim to summarize for everybody on the board the audits that he told me about that I think are really helpful. So we have either a successful business operating in the field where we're looking, we do an RFQ or an RFP, we select, they check references, they have to provide certain certifications that meet with all standards. To do this kind of work, prevailing wage is one of them. Then they come to the board for approval. Stage 5 would be stages of completion, checked by POSTA, disbursement, approval of the voucher, issuance of the voucher, preparation of the financials. We look at the financials are posted, the public looks at the financials. Then there's an actual durable, in a lot of these capital projects, there's a durable work product that has to endure, that has to function, that has to last. So, for example, on Lloyd, we have work that has lasted. We might feel a little bit differently about how we did it, but fair enough. it has endured, it has lasted, and that is also an accurate test of the skill and ability and expertise of the staff and the people that they have hired and the process that we've gone through. So, when you audit, there are two types of audits that you do. You do selective spot audits throughout all the accounts receivable and accounts payable, just as a spot check. And then you do a project audit for depreciation, for assigned value, for all of these other things. So Jim, I'm gonna have you talk about that, and then I'm gonna have you talk about where in the process that happens.
So when we do large capital projects, a value has to be assigned to it when the project is completed. And the past 2 years, working with Lauterbach and Amon, they will look at final invoices for these projects to, one, see that we've closed out the project and paid the bills in relation to the contract that was issued, but also to assign a final value to that so it can be depreciated over time. And you'll have to help me with the number. I know the GASB has a circular out there that says all tangible items have to have a value associated with them for rental entities. Whether it's a turf field or a light pole or a property we own in the lakefront, everything has to have a value associated with that. And so when we do a project there, the auditors are coming in to verify that those projects are complete and the value is equivalent to what's been spent on this project. So that's one of the many checks and balances that are in place for the projects.
So there's a lateral sort of audit of all accounts receivable and payable in a spot check fashion, and then there's a linear deep dive on each of these projects that they have to assume. How many municipalities and park districts does Lauterbach and Amon audit?
So we specialize only in governmental clients or municipalities. That is the only client from an audit standpoint that we work with. Reason being, as other large companies, and so that's why he started Lauterbach and Amon, so that and he wants it to be strictly sticking to governmental, so municipalities get the rightful audit and respect they deserve as any other business.
And do you know roughly how many?
I don't know that number off the top of my head, but I know it's a lot because I feel like I have a board meeting every night with Sue. I feel like it's getting calls, so it's quite a bit.
And in sitting at the center of this, you're helpful to us in drafting policy and evaluating software and resources, because you see it in all of the entities in which you work.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions?
Yes. Lauterbach and Amon did some audit work on the lakefront master plan. Is that correct? I saw documents from you in some of the files, but I didn't have this mindset on it. Do you know? Does anyone else know?
So part of the odds lot grant is the requirement for the odds lot grant is to have a third party review and audit the funding for the odds lot grant. So our odds lot grants that we have received in the past and have completed, those did receive a third party review. Maybe that's what you're thinking about.
So would that have also been the 2019 bluff restoration plan as well?
That was not based on OSLOT. The last one we did was Hubbard Woods for $400,000 that we had received. There was a third-party requirement from NOAA that was required for the bluff restoration grant. I don't remember the total on that off the top of my head, but that was required for a third-party auditor to do as well through the IDNR. Maybe that's the one that you're thinking of.
Okay,
I can get back to you on that.
No, I haven't, that would be
Sure.
helpful to know. Because it seems like some of these projects are similar firms to the ones that were used for those grants. And I just feel like we need a little bit more detail on what the steps are, what's being completed. And so I don't know if there's some direction that Lauterbach and Amon can give us, or some other firm, or Costa needs to sit and look at the contract and lay it out so that we have a list of what the deliverables are in each phase. I will tell you, looking at it, it was not immediately apparent to me what those different checkpoints were for each of the phases.
So I guess my question is, in the linear deep dive audit that's project specific, that Lauterbach and Amon conducts after these projects are completed and throughout the course of these projects as they are expensed and reported monthly, quarterly, and annually, and then published, and with Costa and Jim participating in that process, does that not give you comfort?
No, it doesn't, and I'll tell you why. Because when I look at the Lakota contracts, we have signed our third contract for bluff restoration work, and that's confusing to me because I'm sitting here saying, well, why wasn't it done already?
So the different contracts that we've held with the Lakota group, we held one which was based off the grant that we received from the IDNR for bluff planning. And that was one of the phases, which was a secondary grant that we received after the initial master plan grant. From there, the second contract we had was for the construction implementation of phase 1 for Tower, which was the staircase for there, the bluff restoration for Tower, bluff restoration for Lloyd, and bluff restoration for Maple Street bluffs. That was completed under a separate contract with the Lakota group for design and construction management. And then the third contract that we have is the current contract for bluff work, and that subsidizes between Elder and Centennial, and the work that's split between the work product from Red Barn and the work product that the Lakota team is presenting with their subconsultants, Spaceco, Seaval, I forget the other firm off the top of mind, but that's the third contract that's currently underway.
So the
that would be
second one,
breakdown.
at least the proposal, it did include bluff plans for all 5 sites.
That is correct.
Okay.
And that work product from those plans have changed, once again, with the future, or the design of the board and what was asked from the boards and staff from what was done previously, and then updated because they were old or needed to be updated per what we've heard, and they were done just that. They were updated accordingly. Once again, from the conceptual level, finer detail into conceptual design plans, but never taken to construction document phase for actually bid work. The last phase of work that we've completed, took it from that design into bid documents to work product, and that's the difference.
So I guess my question is it possible to see that? Like, that's the other piece of it. Like, it's one thing to sit here and talk about it, but like, what is the output?
Yeah. So
I have all that in my
yeah,
office. We can
you have it all.
share that with
And
you.
my question is, a lot of this happened certainly while I was on the board, and so that my level of comfort may be different. When did a lot of this happen? A lot of these documents happen?
From 2014 till current, it's
Yeah.
been ongoing.
Yeah.
So over the course of the last.
So,
Yeah.
so going back to the Red Barn contract, so like for the village, stormwater project, you have a spreadsheet with, this task, this task, this
Sure.
task, this task. That is very reassuring in looking at what the work is done and what's happening and, how much are we paying? That's
Right.
all, that feels very good. For the Red Barn contract, in contrast, we had numbers on a page. And that is not very reassuring.
Sure.
Like, what?
So to explain the difference between the two contracts, the contract in the spreadsheet that's been put together for the construction on the golf course work is construction. It's not the soft cost, it's not managing Rick's contract that we had for $117,000. This is for the work product that there's unit cost based on work productivity on the golf course. So linear feet of curving that was put in or wasn't put in is taken off and scrapped. So there is a hard document. As it was suggested earlier, the work that's being done by Red Barn is based on a fixed cost based on 8 deliverables, 4 per site. Deliverable for Elder Lane Beach was review and conceptual plan and preliminary engineering was one phase of that work. Final plan design and permitting was phase 2. Phase 3 was construction documents, and then the final phase is bidding. And that was completed for both the Elder Lane Beach, independent of Centennial Lane Beach, which also drove the project cost. We have 2 independent projects for that work. So that's the way that is based on a fixed cost per work assignments. And the unit cost, the initial is $113,870. The final plan design and permitting is $80,650. Construction documents is $219,750. And then the bidding is $7,425 for Elder. I won't read Centennials, but it's very similar to it.
So I'm just saying, $113,000, for example, is a heck of a lot of money. So I know that the final completion metric for that is the 70% engineering drawings, presented, and
That's part of the construction documents. There's 3 phases of implementation for the construction documents. I don't remember them off, but there was 3 points. I'm going to say it was 50, 75, and 90, or 100%. Might have been the 3 totals that we put percentage based on when staff would review documents. But that is going to be based on the third phase of payment for Red Barn for construction documents, as far as that lump sum of $219,750 for Elder and the lump sum of $213,780 for Centennial. That includes Matt's time, that includes his structural engineer's time to put together, that includes his draftsperson's time and Shabik Associates' time to actually put together the physical construction documents for the 3 different phases of work.
so is
So we're gonna
there,
have work product for phase 1 construction documents, that's gonna be shovel ready. We're gonna have work product for phase 2, that'll be shovel ready, and we're gonna have work product for phase 3, shovel ready. So we can then turn on each one of those different components whenever the board gives authorization to go out to bid and formalize that work.
so for Elder 1A as an example, is there a sub-project plan with that outlines these items?
I'm not sure what you mean by sub-project plan.
Like a list of what those
I can
interim
work with
steps
Matt
are?
and populate that, and then we can use that as your cost tracking matrix as far as percentage
I
based,
think
if I
that would be,
understand that, if that helps.
I think that would be very helpful. I think it would be
Sure.
helpful for everyone.
Is it customary in this field to do that? Okay. Is it time consuming?
There'll be times to set up the metrics, but nothing that can't be done. So I just want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable with what we're doing. Our approach has been what it's always been. We're looking to deliver the best project that we can for the public.
Correct.
And if we need to do other steps along the way to make sure people are comfortable with that, I don't mind doing that, no problem with that. I just want to make sure I have a clear direction for the board and what I need to do. That's what I'm looking for.
So do you think it would, as you highlighted supporting documents, do you think more detail provided by the vendors would be helpful as opposed to putting the onus back on staff? Would that be the appropriate ask, in your opinion?
I am flexible. I'm just communicating that I am not comfortable sending out large sums of money based on numbers on a, without.
I want to see something more.
I want to see
Understand
something
what
more.
is being paid for.
Yes.
Understood.
Yeah, I think it's challenging in our seats when you have somebody with 25+ years of experience overseeing this stuff and is super comfortable and familiar with it. And we want to trust but verify, right? And so I would actually just submit back to our vendors, ask for more supporting detail.
I've been taking notes and put together some plans of, to move forward with this already, so yeah.
Right. And I know that we, as a board, have iterated in our design multiple times, so that what was originally contracted and what we originally thought the vision was going to be is vastly different from what it is. And each of those changes costs money, but each of those changes reflects what people in the community have asked for. And each of those changes requires drawings to illustrate the community. So,
I guess the other thing that is confusing to me is like those drawings that Eric has in front of him were produced by Lakota. I have not seen any drawings that are produced by Red Barn. Now, how they filter into the Lakota drawings, I don't know, but we're also paying out a bunch of money to Lakota. So it's not,
It's a collaboration of both firms. So Lakota is presenting the documents that you see here for the actual design plan work, because that's what we're looking for for Scott and his team to present, because they're the ones that do the best work to present to the community and make sure that the open houses are addressed in a manner that everybody can read, understand, and really take away some good information. Matt is very technical based as an engineer in what he does. If Matt was to organize and put on those open houses, there'd be a lot of people walking away scratching their heads because they're like, I'm not sure what we just saw. But where his work product comes in is when you get to construction documents, it's going to be just the opposite. That's Matt's work product based on the information from the Lakota group and their design details as the landscape architects and designers on the project to get to that final phase. So it's a collaboration of both parties. One doesn't work independent of the other. They work in collaboration with each other and their sub-consultants. So there's a team of about 8 entities that are working towards this project at any given time.
And we didn't do any of this for Lloyd.
We did some of it for Lloyd,
Yeah.
but not to the deep dive. That was an opportunity that we stepped away from to do further engagement.
Yeah.
Big difference at Lloyd. Lloyd didn't involve steel. It didn't involve a lot of the structural analysis that's being required for the steel structures. Placing stone was done by Michaels at the direction of Shabika, with some background work done by Red Barn. This is a plans and specs project. So we're creating an entire set of documents that can be then taken out to bid publicly. Prior to this, last year, we were engaging with Michaels because of our confidence level to do a design build. They have in-house engineering. So this is an entirely different approach.
May I ask a question then? Lloyd was not bid as design build. There's a whole
That's not-
section
no,
of
that's not
Park
what I said.
District.
That's not what I said.
You know, earlier,
I said last year when we were, the original
Okay.
proposal for Elder Centennial, we were working on a design build basis with Michaels. They weren't selected per se, but they were assisting us with the design. That's different than the approach we're taking with Red Barn.
It's different than the approach that we're
And it's
taking with
different
this
than the approach.
project.
Yes.
Because now we're doing a design, and we're iterating around the design, and then, once we get the design finalized, then we'll go to the bid out and the build. So now we don't have a design build firm, the way that we originally, and so the original costs for Elder Centennial were from Michaels as a design build potential entity.
I don't recall that at all. I don't recall any, I'm sorry, I must have been asleep. Do you think Mr. Thorpe might sit down while we?
Oh, no, it's okay.
I'm feeling sorry.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
Do you have any recommendations of listening to the challenge that we're trying to work on from an audit like, I think you have a very good view now of what the issues are that we're trying to solve. I think at the end, you're gonna come through and you're gonna, as Christina talked about, look at this as a project audit for depreciation purposes and see.
And valuation, yeah.
But like the work product, making sure that we're not just sending money to send money is an important piece of that. And do you have any recommendations?
So, kind of get into a gray area. So we just audit and report on the financials, right?
Okay.
For extra procedures, I can definitely go back to the partners and see if there's an agreed upon procedures or something that we put together, or if that's something that we can provide, or if that's something that you have to look out elsewhere.
Okay.
I can't speak for right now because it's not really my area of expertise.
Okay, fair enough.
But we can talk further, Jen and John and I, if that's something that you want to go.
Right, but I just want to point out that Costa does have expertise in this area of managing a project. And so, I mean.
Bring it on. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, you have 25 years of construction experience in this area with these assets over and over and over, and that's what gives me comfort.
On smaller projects though, again, the scale of this is much larger and the code invoices have
True,
additional
but
detail.
but these are vendors that we've worked with before, that we understand what is an appropriate deliverable and what is an appropriate cost.
Not Red Barn though.
Red Barn
Tiny sliver for
No,
Lloyd, but that's it.
Red Barn has successfully executed other projects that were in their portfolio that they showed to us when we selected them.
A lot of municipal work in OSHA and other areas. The work that was done at Lloyd was done with Shabika and Associates on a much smaller schedule, like a smaller scale, based on the work confidence that we had in that team to direct us to facilitate that work. It was brought forward by this board, and it was suggested that we need to take a deeper dive, we need to step back and take a further look. that time, based on the RFQ and the process that we went through, out of the 3 qualified candidates that submitted proposals for evaluation, we didn't reject anybody. We went through the interview process. We went through the process for each and every one. Everybody was given their time to present to the team. I believe there was 7 or 8 of us.
That's
on
all
this.
good.
I
Like,
don't
we
think
made
we
a
just-
decision.
I don't
We
think we
made a
need to rehash
decision.
this.
We made a
We're
decision
gonna
on
We made a
that.
decision, we
Forward
made an
is the
agreement.
contract that
I think
was
we're talking
approved.
about detailing, getting additional detail behind every invoice and having a schedule that you can track against. I think that's perfectly appropriate.
Not a problem.
Work with Red Barn and Lakota to get that done. But I do respect the numerous iterations that we've gone through, of which, you crumple up a piece of paper and throw it away. All that design work, all that time was expended.
Yeah.
But when the board gives a different direction, the community says go otherwise, you change gears.
But that's an important thing to track based on our lump sum contract, because those things, do they go into the hourly rate? Do they not? I think we need to understand that with some level of specificity.
Okay, you have
I've-
enough
I've-
information to go
I've- I've
forward.
direction
Do you feel
report.
like
Next
you
time
have
we can
enough
circle back with
direction, like,
any suggestions.
any?
Costa and I talk about this when he submits his invoices, so I'm generally comfortable with what's being presented to me for payment. But I'm happy to help Costa, drive down into the detail that you're looking for.
Okay, so we're on.
And I don't need every paper clip, but.
So we're on approval of the audit, and yeah, go ahead.
So,
Adam, I'm expecting you to jump in.
Coast is not gonna do this just for Commissioner Rapp. He's doing this for the entire board.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, I think what the end result will be is when future progress invoices are received from Lakota and/or Red Barn, there will be a narrative that goes with it that describes all of the work product in more detail that supports that progress report, with perhaps deliverables if it corresponds with the scope of work that they've completed. I don't think you want an hourly diary of what they're working on a day-to-day basis. Like our invoices say on a daily basis what we're doing and how long we have to do it, but that's different than what they're working.
I know, we have a lump sum, lump sum contract,
Right.
Lakota does provide the hourly breakdown, but this is a lump sum contract and we need more than a number on a page. But what I was expecting you to say was, apparently, what I learned in boot camp is we don't approve the audit report, we receive the audit
Okay.
report.
Thank you
Because we
very
have no
much.
basis to approve
Yes,
it.
yes, well, thank you. So may I have a motion to accept, that's exactly what the wording says, to accept the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2022 as presented.
So moved.
Excellent, may I have a second?
Second.
That is a roll call.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Approved, yes.
Commissioner Hemmings?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Koto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Excellent. We are now moving to the Winnetka Golf Club update from Kemper Sports. Does somebody want to pull the, say it again? Oh my gosh, the foundation. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
I'm premature, excuse
Oh, no,
me.
no.
Excuse me.
Get more auditing.
Yes.
Oh, wait,
Lucky you.
there's more.
Wait, there's more. No, this is important because
Oh,
this is,
absolutely,
this is
absolutely.
very important.
So yes, so this is the smaller of the book. This is the audit that we performed on the foundation of the Park District. You will find on page 1.
Jim, did we give this to the board members?
I did not, I think I get it right now.
That'd be probably a good idea.
Yeah, we can.
Excuse me, just a moment. Thank you. Let's go, they're not on board.
So I'll just share what we were discussing. This is a document for us to review, not necessarily accept, because the foundation is a 501c3 and a separate entity.
It is informational only.
Correct.
It is checking off the box of the commissioner's
Yes,
spreadsheet.
exactly.
And then while we wait,
Yes.
just a comment, we're not trying to cause extra work for any staff. I think what we're trying to do, this is in response to your earlier comments, is to respond to community concerns. That this is a very high dollar project, and they're curious to see how their tax dollars are spent. So,
All right. So if everyone can turn to page 1. It's going to look very similar as it is. This is the audit opinion for the foundation. The foundation received an unmodified opinion, which once again is our highest level. So we found that it is free of material misstatements. Moving on to page 4. This is the balance sheet for the foundation. And flip over to the next page. You will see the statement of activities. So it shows revenue and expenses. And then on the following page, page 6, it shows the cash flow. So then going to page 7, similar to the Park District's financial report, there are notes to the financial statement, which discuss, once again, how we came across our numbers, the methodology used during the audit. So that is it for the foundation's financial report. And the last and final piece is the management letter for the foundation. So the one current year recommendation is that within our testing, we found that the bank balance wasn't fully collateralized for its essentially insurance on the cash balance that is in there as of 12/31/2022. So our recommendation is to work with your bank just to make sure that you raise that or to monitor that.
It's a failure of the banking institution, correct? Because we have collateral agreements in place with all of our banks.
This is the foundation.
Foundation.
Oh, sorry, okay. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. And then there were 2 prior year comments that were repeated. One's accounting software. Just recommending to look for accounting software that provides a chart of accounts. So each expense and revenue has its own account number for financial tracking purposes. And the next one is the operating reserve policy. This is a policy to ensure that the foundation has liquid resources to ensure they're able to meet cash needs for expenditures, or if there's excess, steps being taken to potentially invest the excess money. Once again, these are policies that are best practices, and it is up to the board, however the board sees fit. And the final one is it's GASB 87, but called a different name because it's a not-for-profit. It's FASB ASU number 2016-02 leases. Essentially what we talked about the Park District, GASB 87 leases. From our testing, there was no material leases, so there was no changes to the financials.
Okay, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
When did you look at the Parks Foundation information on that software that you referenced?
So when we did the trial balance, there weren't account numbers. So our recommendation is to get a software that when a trial balance is ran, that there's account numbers for a chart of account to be followed. Just so that there's, when journal entries are made, that there's a paper trail, essentially.
So would that in any way, shape, or form involve Lorraine as part of the equation, or the bank work that you've done in collaboration with the Parks Foundation?
The bank work is a step in the right direction, so they're separated into different accounts at this point. But what he's referring to is line item, you know, specification, which.
That creates,
Which is
that
what-
holds a
which
field
is what-
for an account
Correct,
number.
which is more Tyler than Boomerang.
And which is what Taylor, I think, is also working on with you.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
I would just make an observation for the multi-year restricted donations.
Yes.
It's so important to keep those because that information tends to get lost year to year.
Which is one of the main reasons we created different accounts
Correct.
for each type
I
of
think
restricted
was-
donation.
yeah.
It's essential to track that, and that was not being done prior to my arrival here, so
Thank you.
we're all starting from scratch and building.
Exactly, exactly. We're getting there. We're getting
Right.
there. We're doing better than we were.
I
That's-
would add to that. I mean, we actually have very detailed spreadsheets
Mhm.
that Jim's worked on, Taylor Brooks and I have worked on, to look at any donation that's come in, ensure that it's restricted, so the $100,000 donation from the Winnetka Women's Club, it's restricted, it has a 20-year life, you know, things of that nature. So those details are now in spreadsheet format, which is detail that will live well past all of us on this
Good.
park district.
And that stuff was necessary prior to the accounting software that a lot of accounting was recommending. We needed to know where it was and what it was for. Then we started looking at accounting software as you and I discussed previously.
Okay. So our action item on this is to ask any questions and then simply to thank you. Is that correct?
Thanks for sharing
Yes.
this. This is good.
Denise, is that
Sure, it's
correct?
good for our reviews.
Okay.
Yeah, and, you know, to add to it, I don't know if the Parks Foundation, correct me if I'm wrong, you never had an audit. So
No.
to actually have, you know, you're looking at a staff of all volunteers, or excuse me, a board of all volunteers without a staff, right? So it leans on, you know, Jim and Andy and others to a certain degree. So it's, you know, grateful that we have a starting point, for lack of a better term. But it's also good to hear what you've suggested, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful night.
Gives me a great deal of confidence. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, moving on to item 8.2, Kemper Sports. You're on, sir. I just want to start by saying that you got a big shout out from the village at their meeting on Tuesday. They have walked the course. They are very impressed with the work that Rick Jacobson is doing. They're very impressed with the work that Costa's team is doing, and they're very excited.
Excellent, that's
Yes.
great news. Well,
Yes.
thank you, everybody, for having
Yeah,
us.
all of you, got Kemper and Costa's team, and Rick Jacobson.
Yep, the golf course is coming along wonderfully. We'll get, we'll jump right in here. Just a quick introduction, Vince Suarez with Kemper Sports. I've got the team with us. I've got Mary Kate Walsh, who is our Regional Sales and Marketing Director. Everybody, I think, has met Andrew Garner, our Director of Agronomy, and of course, our General Manager, Matt Johnson. So we're thrilled to be here again to give you all a brief update. We're going to go through a construction update. We're going to talk a little bit about marketing. We'll go through some operations, then we're going to get into some updates on the bridges and also the golf carts. One of the asks of the board was to come back in July and just, kind of refine those golf cart numbers, make sure that they were correct. So we'll head right into construction. I'm going to turn it over to Andrew.
All right. Thank you for having us, me. The construction update, pretty much no major disruptions, even with the amount of rain that we've had in the past few weeks. We've kept moving. They have kept moving forward with earthwork, with cart paths, with bunker work, drainage. A lot of the rain has helped us identify some concerns, which have been corrected immediately on site in regards to drainage. Continually moving soil. The lake on 18 is, I would say, probably close to 80% finished right now. So that means the golf course is getting close to being completely filled up and earthwork completed. So right now we're still moving forward. Everything is on time. Irrigation's on site working, Wadsworth with drainage and bunkers. Currently, we're working on green side bunkers, getting the drainage in those and sanded up. The biggest thing that we have coming up is the potential of grassing within 10 days. The start grassing the north end of the property and working our way out, like we've been discussing, and all the process that we've been doing have all started from the north end. So they are wanting to start seeding within 14 days. That could start as soon as next week, as we're looking at right now. So really excited again. Place is changing. A lot of visual things that I don't think the golf courses hadn't seen in the past. So very excited for you guys.
And we have a short video here on the construction to show everybody. So before we get into the marketing update, just a quick call out to Costa and Kyle as well. We work with them every day. Our team works with them every day. Matt, Andrew, Mary Kate, myself, and really the working relationship has been outstanding. And I just want to thank Costa. I know he's put a ton of hard work into this project. You can see it coming to life right here. It's on time. We're grassing here in another 10 days. We took a drive out today. They're getting ready to do the fine-tuned grading to really get the holes in the shape that they need to be in for the grassing. So just a wonderful job by everybody, by Costa, by Kyle, by the entire team. So thank you to everybody. And I'm going to turn it over to Mary Kate for a quick marketing.
Yeah, so a couple things on the marketing update. As we've seen the first few months of the year, good traction continues on our website. On the left-hand side, you can see our renovation page is the most viewed page on the website behind the homepage, which is great to see. That's where we continue to post pictures as well as the renovation update video that you saw. And then on social media, we continue to see good traction there as well. We've seen video perform its best, so we have our regular tip videos that Matt films as well as our construction updates, and then we get time-lapse video as well, which we can even share during the next meeting too. But I posted one of those so you can see month by month the progression of the project, which is great. And as you saw in that video, it's captivating to see, from different angles, from up above, from below the machines, everything that's happening. And with our marketing efforts in general, we'll have a continued focus on the demo days. We've seen when we send out multiple e-blasts for those and post on social media, we get good response and participation, as well as Discover Golf and continued on our renovation updates, as well as private instruction. And then one exciting thing that Kemper Sports as a whole is doing with our properties next week is Youth Golf Week. So we've branded that with I think his title is Community Advisor for our Make Golf Cool initiative, hashtag Make Golf Cool. Roger Steele, he's on the Callaway staff, and he is a influencer community ambassador, so he's going to be in Chicagoland next week. And so all of our properties are promoting Youth Golf Week, and here we have Discover Golf happening all week. So we will be taking a lot of pictures and videos and promoting that. So that's an exciting thing across the portfolio. And then finally, we will be promoting the fall programming for Discover Golf that's now live through RecTrack.
And Richard will be, or I'm sorry, Roger Steele will be traveling to 2 of our facilities to shoot video and shoot content, work with our instructors. He is going to work with Richard Franklin, who is the president and CEO of Discover Golf. They're going to do it up in Lake Forest, but it will be capturing the entire Discover Golf program, which obviously is a big part of the Winnetka community as well. So you will certainly get a shout out from Roger and from Richard. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk a little bit about the operations.
Thank you, Vince. We've talked about, obviously, with operations being limited to driving range, we've got several activities going on. We continue with Parkinson's players, which you'll see promoted through the Park District. Pat at the tennis center runs a program in conjunction with ours. So they start over at golf, and they run from 4 to 5, and then we take them over to tennis, and they go from 5 to 6 over at tennis. So it's been great. We're up to 12 participants already, and other than little rain on one of the Wednesdays, we've had some successful times. PJ Hope, and you'll see a couple of pictures, we wound up that program. The graduation ceremony was held there at the bottom. It was awesome, and these soldiers that partook in it were terrific, and we've got some lasting relationships there. We're hosting at one of the fellow Kemper courses at Cantini, we're hosting a end-of-year tournament. It's already sold out. There's 80 participants. There's awards, prizes. They go out and play 9 holes in a scramble, and then they come in for a dinner at the end. So that should be pretty neat with some special events planned along with it. The Callaway fittings that Mary Kate mentioned have been very successful. They come out to the golf club. We're going to change it up a little bit going toward the end of the month. We're going to bring it back on some Saturdays, so instead of just Wednesdays, we're going to see if we can get a little bit different demographic on the weekends as well to try to foster some more sales out there. And then as Mary Kate mentioned, Discover Golf has been doing wonderful. So they've really engaged the kids, a lot of visual attraction, and really have a lot of captive audience over there at the golf club. Just a brief overview, the range has been doing terrific. So despite no golf going on in the courses, you can see like in June, our 5-year average was basically at or above where we were prior to that, and that's without any rounds of golf partaken, so there's no warm-up buckets or any of that other stuff. So the range is thriving and going strong.
So obviously with the solid range revenue, excellent junior golf, the merchandise sales, etc. Total revenue for June was $91,358 on a budget of $71,083. I do want to say that these are final numbers. I believe in the original presentation that you received, they were still preliminary. So these have been updated and are different than what you have in your packet. Year-to-date revenue is $231,839 compared to the budget of $220. When you drill down, the EBITDA is negative $16,000 and change versus a budget of $65,000 in June. Year-to-date is negative $148 versus a negative $365. Net income-wise, year-to-date we're favorable to budget by $180,000. I think it's a significant amount. Obviously, we're losing money, but the golf course is not open. So we've lost less than what we projected to lose, which is really a good story. Merchandise in June was $3,000 favorable to budget. Private lesson revenue was $2,000 favorable to budget. Grounds payroll, Andrew's payroll was $13,000 favorable. Range payroll is $6,000 favorable. So a lot of great work being done by the team on site to really watch their expenses, their controllable expenses, their payroll, etc., while driving revenue through the fitting days, through the range, etc. And it keeps bringing people into the facility. So great job by everybody. One of the asks that we had was to come back in July and talk a little bit, and really come back and let you know, are the cart prices firm from these vendors? I'm happy that we have placed the tentative order for the golf carts based on the board's direction previously. I did contact E-Z-Go, Yamaha, Club Car. The prices have not changed. They haven't gone up, but they haven't gone down. So they are the same. This is the exact same slide that you saw a couple months back. The trade-in value is still going to be determined. The trade-in value of the cars that you currently have will still be determined about 90 days prior to delivery of the new golf carts. And the interest rates will be finalized 90 days prior as well. So, good news that they haven't gone up, and they haven't gone down. Handrails, one of the things that we did was, so the bridge guy, believe it or not, that's the name of the company, the bridge guy. They put in the bridges on the par 3, they're putting in the bridges on the 18-hole course. They've got a couple bridges left to go on the 18-hole course. But one of the things we looked at after the bridges went in was the need for handrails. Based on the distances and how high those bridges are, where the water is, etc., and really from a liability standpoint. So we contacted a couple different companies. We've been working with Costa, we've been working with Kyle, and the bridge guy came in a couple different rail options. We chose the standard rail option, which was $50 a linear foot. I just want to kind of throw out, here's the bridge on bridge, we call it bridge E on the par 3. You can see the water. This water will rise, but still significant distance from the water. Bridge F on the par 3, same thing. Bridge H on the par 3, same distance, look at the distance there as well. And then you get to the 18-hole course. The drops on the 18-hole course aren't as drastic as the par 3, but it's still a liability issue with those drops. Hole number 2 on the 18-hole course, I'll say, has handrails now, and this is the existing picture. Hole number 9 and hole number 15, which you saw those in the video. The bridge guy is getting ready to come out in early August and actually construct those bridges, so they're not up yet. So we looked, and that's bridge Q and hole number 9 that are not up yet. We did go out and bid this and quote this to a couple different companies. We contacted the bridge guy. They came in at $24,000 total. That includes, I want to call out that includes hole number 2. ATS Builders, which was another bridge company, actually recommended that by the bridge guy, came in at $96,000. And Porches and More, which is a local contractor, came in at $45,000. We kind of knew going into this that the bridge guy was likely going to be the low bidder, just based on the fact that they're coming back, they don't have to mobilize, they're going to be here in August, etc. And that turned out to be the right case. So again, that $24,000 includes the bridge on hole number 2. We carved that out. It's a little, $21,000 in handrail costs. We're not asking you for money. How are we going to pay for this? We're asking ourselves for the money. We have a couple different options. We could use some of the contingency funds. We can fund it out of our operations, or we can do a combination of both. This is not going to be a change order. This would be a new contract with the bridge guy. And based on the financial slide from earlier, we have achieved the necessary savings to go ahead and pay for this out of the operations, or to split the cost with the contingency, depending on what we decide. So we're here really to let you know of our options, and to get some direction from the board if you would like us to continue on this and get the handrails. Questions?
Yes, sir. I'll come up.
You go.
How's the drainage performing?
Well, yes. And with the rain that we have received, it helped us identify some issues that we were having underground. Again, those issues have been identified and corrected. I believe the last rainstorm was last weekend. I was out there. Everything's draining great. Water's where it's supposed to be going. You can see it around the drains. Not a whole lot of standing water where it's not supposed to be at. So from my view, everything is working the way it's supposed to.
So the expectation that we will lose fewer days due to inundated course conditions proving true,
It's trending that way, yes.
trending that way. Great.
The water will certainly be removed faster from the compost, yeah. It won't eliminate the water, but it'll remove faster.
What is the reason to think that the railings are optional on these last 3 holes? Because I think they're.
Oh, I think they're necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think they're
I
mandatory.
think-
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure what direction you were looking for from the board, because
I
would
actually,
say
I
yes
actually
to all
changed that in
rails. Yeah.
the presentation you saw up here. Yeah, I think if we're gonna do them, we do them all.
Yeah.
It's a liability issue, it's a safety
Correct.
issue, making sure that nobody,
Yeah, correct. I
Nobody
mean,
falls off.
I couldn't understand if I was missing what I thought was quite obvious.
well, we were talking about the 18-hole course versus
Yeah.
the 9-hole course
Yeah,
at one
okay.
point.
Yeah.
And then we, kind of took a look at the grading, we took a look at the distances and said, it's a good idea to do them all.
Got it. Okay, perfect. I agree. Anybody else? Any other comments? Yeah.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, go
Can I
ahead.
make a comment?
Yes.
I would just like to not only commend the Kemper team, but Andrew himself. And the work that Andrew Garner has done on this golf course has been outstanding. The time commitment that this gentleman has put into the course, into his work through the course, and just the time that he has spent identifying the issues, meeting with Pete and others from the construction crew, bringing things to our attention, bringing things to Greg's attention, and then our team helping as needed, has been outstanding. So Andrew has been a great asset to this, and I don't want to say that it could have been done without him, but it's definitely been done a lot easier with his work, his due diligence, and his time behind the wheel has been working out very well. So I would like to compliment Andrew himself on the great job that he has done, because it needs to be made mention, and this board needs to know how much time this gentleman has committed to that golf course to see this project through. And I just wanted to make sure we understood that.
That's great.
So-
I think you might want to put the hole in that we name it
The one that floods.
Everybody gets a Mario too, but yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the very patient consideration of support for use of Crow Island Woods for Crow Island school renovations. May I have a motion to authorize staff to create an agreement for the use of Crow Island Woods for the Crow Island school renovations, and to create an agreement to convey the playground property to School District 36?
So moved.
Second? Discussion.
I just have a question. I had sent an email to John to circulate to the rest of the board on last Friday. Did that happen?
I would have to go back and look to see what that email was. I've received a lot of emails from you, so I'll figure out which one it is and see if it needs to
I'm
be
sure I got
circulated.
it.
I thought I
You
did.
were copied on it.
Yeah,
Did
I'm
anyone
sure I
else
got
get
it.
it? It looks like a no.
Sure I got it.
Okay.
Do you want to just state your?
No, other discussion can start first, and then I'll
Okay,
jump in.
perfect, okay. Any other discussion? You had your hand up?
I saw a one-sheet recommendation
Okay.
from Kyle Bird, and it seemed to have somewhat of a change from our prior discussions, because, and we have President Emily Rose back here.
Patiently
So,
waiting.
Hi there, Emily. But as I recall, we talked about the sliver on which the gym was going to actually be constructed, and the discussions surrounded that sliver being an actual conveyance. So I guess I have a question now. Why are we conveying nearly, what, 3/4 of an acre of land to the district when historically that land has been used through a license agreement? And just kind of in thinking, I understand, council, you're concerned about liability. I comprehend that. But historically, looking back, when the Park District acquired Nick Corwin Park, we actually purchased that park from the school district for about $1 million. And so, we made the library pay for library parks, so we kind of, I'm seeing somewhat of an inconsistency here. And I think if my proposal would be, if D36 needs title to this land, that D36 would then, we have it appraised, And they would buy land, as did the library. I'm also concerned about another factor, and that is we have residents from Glencoe and from Northfield who are part of our park district. They do not participate in D36 in any way, so I'm wondering what we do really to make those residents whole. And then finally, the concept of open lands. For many of us, that is a huge issue. When parkland is conveyed, it's conveyed in law. And so, again, I thought our mandate as a district was to actually not only conserve parkland, but to acquire it rather than to convey. And so those are my concerns. I would highly recommend that we overcome our liability concern here, and that we work toward a license agreement, because it's been historic. Unless President Rose can advise us as to why you must have title. What is driving this? We must have title for a portion of land that I understand will remain a playground. So
I know you had arguments you wanted to make, and then you had arguments you wanted to make.
Not arguments.
No, I mean, not
Let's
that we
not
ever
put it
argue.
in that context.
I think it's important to clarify.
Points.
Yeah.
I don't, can I go first?
Yes. Go ahead.
I just want to clarify one thing.
Yes.
I don't think the school district's saying to us, we must have title. This is, I think the Kyle's memo is a reflection of the collaboration between John, Kyle, and I in evaluating the totality of the circumstances. But we're not responding to the school district saying, we must have title. So I just want to clarify that, because I thought that was not a reflection of the memo, and so I just want to clarify that.
Well, a one-page memo with a penultimate paragraph that is a huge change. And I don't know if we had this land appraised, I would think it would be far in excess of $1 million. So, yes, absolutely.
Thank you. There is no license agreement, so that should be clarified. We looked, neither party could find an agreement, a written agreement between the Park District and District 36 that addressed the ongoing use for the past, 70 years? Since the 1950s, that land is occupied by the first grade playground at Crow Island, has been just by either a handshake or by the consent. It was somewhat codified or addressed in a joint permit application when that playground was redeveloped in the mid-2000s, or was it later than that? A little later than that, prior to my time on the board. So for 70 years, it's been a playground. I have full faith and confidence in the D36 will be good stewards of the land. The land use is changing. There are two parcels, the gym parcel, which is about 8,000 square feet, and the playground parcel, which is about 26,000 square feet. There's a big distinction between Winnetka Northfield Library District and Winnetka, or the Winnetka Park District. Much more disparity between the taxing bodies. There's also an agreement that we've been working on between D36 for over a year.
More than that.
Yeah, for well over a year, the intergovernmental agreement. And if you remember, one of the planks of the caucus was to cooperate between the governmental entities so as to allow for a more efficient utilization of resources. Again, big distinction between the relationship with D36 and the Park District versus library, Winnetka Northfield Library and the Park District. That being, we continually utilize each other's facilities for the betterment of the community. And we don't charge each other for that use. In fact, D36 came to us and said, will you pay for the capital improvements of the gymnasium? And we said, absolutely not. We pay for our capital improvements, you pay for your capital improvements. We tax essentially the same people. There are differences, I acknowledge that. We tax essentially the same people, but when we went to try and document all the ways in which we collaborate, it's taken years. And thanks to the staff and the collaboration between both groups, we've come to this IGA that properly documents and acknowledges the joint use of facilities. And there's definitely a give and take in here. Now come to the matter of open space. Yes, the gymnasium is going to occupy a portion of the open space. That parcel is 8,000 square feet. It's rather de minimis in the context of the entire open space that's controlled by the Park District. As I already mentioned, the land use is not changing of the 26,000 square feet of the playground. Now let's go to the village. The village and the stormwater process, they have already acquired 1205 Sunset. That's the Crone property for, I think, a little over $1 million. And there was a grant that was issued to the village that helped pay for that because it was part of open space and the stormwater. There have been prior discussions with the village because it's contiguous to Crow Island that the village would transfer title to the Park District so that it would become part of the Crow Island Woods under Park District management. That's over an acre, 1.05 acres. The total, the 26,000, the 8,000, that's about 3/4 of an acre. So if this unfolds and everybody cooperates and we're all taxing essentially the same people, the Park District at the end of the day, ideally, would net increase its total open space by virtue of acquiring 1205 Sunset. The D36 would have the property it needs to build the gym and properly envelop the first grade playground. Remember, part of their proposal is to erect a fence for security, safety and security around that first grade playground, in fact, encompassing the campus. So to the extent that the Park District, or the D36 could and should control its entire campus and its environment, we discussed with council at a prior meeting the liability exposure, the fact that if something happens, anybody in the chain of title or operation is going to get sued. To the extent it's been 70 years used as a first grade playground, we should just collaborate with the school district, clean it up and convey it. However, Cynthia brought up an idea previously that we could put a reverter clause that should that land at any point in the future no longer be used for the school or the playground, depending upon what we discuss, it would revert, the ownership would revert back to the Park District. I would be satisfied with that arrangement, knowing that, again, the spirit of intergovernmental cooperation, the fact that it's virtually impossible to put dollar figures to all of the back and forth between D36 and the Park District, that an outright conveyance with a reverter is the cleanest way to go.
I agree. And I agree for two reasons. As I understand it, we have had District 36 maintaining that playground, but by virtue of our ownership, we retain some liability. So that's never a good thing. If we're going to own it, we should maintain it ourselves. And if we don't own it, they can maintain it, and then the liability clearly falls with the ownership, which is fair. The second thing I would say is the location of that playground right on Willow Road, to me, is accessible to non-residents of Winnetka. It's easy to get there, it's easy to use, and it's not a completely enclosed and secured private playground on the weekends. It will be accessible to all students because all the neighbors play there in that space on the weekends. In addition to the school, during the school day it's different, during the school year it's different, but definitely in the non-school year time it is accessible, and it's right by the Crow Island Woods. There's parking, etc. So those are my 2 points. Anybody else have any other points? Yes.
I'll elaborate If you look at the Park District website where we describe the amenities of all the different parks, under the Crow Island Woods Park website, it doesn't even describe a playground. There's no representation by the Park District that Crow Island Woods Park hosts a playground. So there's really no inconsistency with how Park District has been marketing that park to the community by conveying it to the school district exclusively for the first grade playground. Second of all, the school district's plans to envelop the playground in a fence, in my mind, isolate that property from the rest of the park, makes it very difficult to manage how to let the public in, and how, you know, are we putting in temporary gates? Who's managing the gates? Putting the fence in and securing it for the school students on a permanent basis is much cleaner and simpler than a hybrid solution, in my opinion. Third, in my evaluation, the current waiver that the school district uses is not sufficient, and I think has some holes. So I'm not confident that it would be sufficient right now to protect the Park District. You know, they make every student who registers for school sign a waiver. I don't know how enforceable that is. You know, they're not going to turn someone away for attendance if they don't sign the Park District waiver. So between those three things, I felt comfortable recommending a conveyance subject to a reversionary clause to make sure that if it's ever repurposed, it would come back to the Park District and be preserved for Parks and Recreation.
So can I add to that?
Yes.
The waiver that, first of all, the waiver that Adam referenced, you know, I give a lot of credit to Commissioner Rapp for getting that in motion, and I give a lot of credit to D36 to applying it. Are there opportunities to improve it? Yes. So we'll advance those discussions with D36, but it's a great starting point. It's about a year old, so it's meaningful to us. We're working backwards. I'm not sure how many people on the board knew, or even on the staff knew that that playground was owned by Park District. It took a while of, you know, peeling back some layers of the onion to get to that point, which is a representation of this parcel has been, you know, and through great enjoyment of 75 years, part of the D36 platform. And then finally, the teamwork that has been referenced. You know, I've not been here for that long, but for the periods of time in which we've interfaced with Dr. Cassanda and now Dr. Tess and other members of the D36 staff, it's a great give and take. So we're asking the board to give us the opportunity to build, essentially we're creating an agreement for your consideration with whatever direction you want to provide tonight, but we'll bring that agreement back to you to ensure that it meets the test of what you're looking for. But as a resident and as a participant with the Park District, I think our job is to support D36 on a parcel of property that has been in their mainstream of recreational enjoyment and learning opportunities for their Crow Island School students. How can we not do that? Right? How can we not? So I'm a big proponent of trying to get this done, you know, for the betterment of the community, but certainly for D36.
Just a question, and I open it up to the other commissioners. If I was a trustee of the library, correct? Mm-hmm. And we just gone through the whole purchase process with the Park District, and they similarly enjoyed that parcel of land for people to go read a book or do an activity. And then I heard that the Park District was simply conveying the land to D36. Would we fall simply back to the that we have a common land use since the 1950s, and would that be enough to kind of feel comfortable with? Please,
respond?
Sure.
I think there are two things. First, disparate constituents. It's the Winnetka Northfield Library, much greater difference in who we are taxing. Second, the land use isn't changing, right? And we have such, remember, the D36 came to us and said, will you help us pay for the gym that you, the park district, are going to utilize? Make that capital expense. We said, no, we don't pay for your capital improvements, even though that gym is for the benefit of the entire community, regularly used, to be regularly used by the park district from our programs. And the details of the maintenance have been worked out in the IGA. There are many things for which we could charge each other back and forth ad infinitum that we said, we're not going to saddle our respective staffs with trying to document all of this back and forth. We're going to work it out within the IGA, make sure that it's even-handed, and this is part of that. Were we to suggest that we should sell the playground to D36, does that mean that the village is then going to come and ask us to pay for 1205 Sunset if it's conveyed and made a part of Crow Island Woods? It's transparent to the public. The uses aren't changing, except in the instance of 1205 Sunset, that's going to be a route for the storm sewer, and then it's going to be open space. The village will retain an easement over it. That's the discussion that's gone on thus far. Better that the park district should maintain the entirety of Crow Island Woods, make it part of Crow Island Woods. Again, we're taxing roughly the same people. The opportunity for our park district residents to utilize that open space, benefit from that open space, remains. I just don't see I see a difference here between the entities, and I'm in favor of conveying subject to a reverter clause.
Thank you.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have more discussion?
More discussion.
Okay.
Some points have been covered. I mean, I personally feel like it's a little bit beyond our fiduciary duty to be conveying the property, because there is a way for the district to continue to use it as it is. That may be overruled, but I would have a couple questions for Mr. Simon with this reverter clause. Is that something that will appear in an Alta title search for this property?
Yes.
And yes. So would it also be able to be replatted with other parcels within Crow Island, or would it remain separately identified for the park district?
Everything's in the details, the devil's always in the
I
details.
know, that's why I'm asking an open session on
Of
video.
course. So if you give staff and I direction to write a reversionary clause to make sure that that property is always identifiable and always subject to the reverter clause, we will write it as carefully as we can to make sure that we always are able to protect the park district's contingent future interest.
Okay. I mean, I will say there are lots of examples where property is leased, and in Glencoe, the tennis courts are jointly on school district and park district property happily. So the case to me is not that strong for the conveyance, really. I am not persuaded by the argument that we might get the Crone property, because that is already covered by a conservation easement. So it's not, I don't feel like that's an offset for this property. I feel like we should be considering each on their merits. So, I mean, I'm in full support of the gym property. I am less in support of the playground conveying.
I think, are we ready?
May I ask one other question,
Yeah.
council? Yep. We can put in a reverter clause, but that reverter clause, if in years to come, Crow Island must be expanded, will not stop the school district from paving over this quarter acre. If they need to expand with construction, there will be a building, so that open land will go away.
Are you suggesting that the area that is identified as the playground?
Yes.
frankly, if the reversionary clause says it can only be used as a playground or open space,
That's fine, if we can, again, the devil's in the detail here. And I would hope.
I wouldn't expect you guys to approve an agreement that didn't include a reversionary clause that is broad as you need it to be.
That retains the concept. I am not at all in favor of a conveyance. I think, but if we are going, if the will of this board is that that's where we're going, and we're just going to give $1.2 million or more to the school district for a 3-year term IGA to use the gym. And again, I'm all about being cooperative and supportive, and I certainly support D36. But it just seems to me that there is no need for this conveyance. That we can work this out among ourselves between the two governmental bodies while retaining property that is open space. But if we're going to do a reverter clause, I would want it as broad as possible. And I don't know how you enforce something like that once you've done a conveyance that would stop, in years to come, the school district from paving, building on that property. I don't know how you do that effectively. So that's a question for you.
If the school district takes an action that violates the reversionary clause, the park district would have to be proactive and respond. You wouldn't just divest of the title automatically.
My point.
But if the board that's in place at the time says, hey, we want to protect ourselves, they would be allowed to go to court and sue to quiet title and to get the property back. But again, your preposition assumes that the school district would disregard the terms and conditions of the reversionary clause.
Things, we can't anticipate what will happen in the future, what the needs will be in the future, whether this will remain. Obviously, if it's conveyed, the reverter clause would bring the land back. Again, I'm just thoroughly confused. When we have a public that comes to us and is screaming about maintaining open lands, why we are so predisposed to want to sell our parks, to want, and with all due respect to D36, to give park land, to give it away? What is forcing this? And again, we have residents, I think Commissioner James, you've conflated some things with the Winnetka Northfield Library. We have residents of Glencoe and of Northfield in our park district. So.
Yes, and they all have access to Winnetka Park District facilities and enjoy the benefits of the intergovernmental agreement by virtue of the facilities that D36 allows us to utilize for the past 70 years at no expense. And now they're going to build a new gym and allow us to utilize the gym. And the reason why this came up in part was because of the liability exposure. We thought it was cleaner and easier. And if you put a land use restriction that says, hey, as long as it's a park, it's yours. If you guys no longer use, or it's a playground, it's yours. If not, it comes back to us. That's the essence of the reverter. I've said my piece.
Do we need to amend this motion to add that the conveyance includes a reverter clause?
Well, I think, can I jump in?
Yeah.
We're just bringing back to you agreements.
Perfect. Okay.
We've heard from the board that you want reverter clauses that are ironclad, for lack of a better term. We'll work with Adam to get that drafted so that the commissioners have the ability to assess the terms and conditions and go.
So, but we did discuss previously the fact that D36 is operating within a certain time frame. They have to apply for permits. They have to get things moving. They have to show title, right? So I'd like to see that we are cooperative and move expeditiously to help them meet their objectives.
Well, no, if, I don't like this, we have to rush. I mean, I feel like the gym, they definitely need to move ahead with permits. The playground, they do not need to move ahead with permits. The playground is staying exactly as it is in the new world.
Yeah.
Right? So,
Except there's a fence.
Except there's a fence.
That's
But that's
accessible.
okay. That's okay because there's a joint special use permit process that we did in 2001 or 2002 to put the playground in. And it can carry on. It's not holding anything back.
Why can't we bifurcate this motion? I think that, I can't speak for other commissioners, but I think we're very much agreed that we are happy to make a gift of the strip of land on which the gym is going to be constructed. And I believe that is the time-sensitive issue. So why don't we make a motion and vote on that tonight?
Do you want to visit the school district rep this week?
Combine that. You want to talk about why we thought that would be effective and efficient to combine the conveyances? Yeah.
I mean, it's certainly more efficient. It costs less money to engage in one transaction instead of two. I mean, that makes sense, that one, I think.
But we're talking about an awful lot of money.
I'm gonna invite.
I only said it was more efficient to do one transaction versus two. I'm not arguing about value. I'm only saying that one transaction is more efficient than two.
Can you, Emily, do you mind, would you like to come up and talk about the timeline?
Sure, I can share that.
Yeah. Because I think it's pertinent to us, because we have been considering this for quite a while.
Yes. No, so thank you for your consideration. And this is, thank you for your insight, your legal insight. The timeline is that we need to go into permit for the work at Kryland in September. So we need to be able to, provide all the documentation to the village at that time in order to go out to bid for our projects. And that's obviously a highly regulated process for school districts in the state of Illinois. So we have to go through that manner. I would like to note that Kryland is a National Historic Landmark. What that means is that you cannot modify the front facade of Kryland. So we've been very diligent in the design work for this addition so that there's limited visibility of the additions from Willow Road. So your point about construction on the first grade playground, we would have to take multiple steps to decommission that building as a National Historic Landmark in order to ever build on that site. So I just wanted to share that. And obviously, we are willing participants here with the Park District. We are accommodating a larger gym size than ideally a school district needs in order to provide programming opportunity for the entire Park District to which you guys service. And we're talking about logistics and parking, and we've spent a lot of time considering all of the needs of every resident in Winnetka, whether they attend the public schools or don't, so they have access to our facilities for use for all. So we appreciate your consideration, and we will partner in whatever way you guys see fit for your needs. But obviously, time is of the essence for us, and just like you, we have staff that have a lot of projects in the works, and for us to continue to go back and revisit and do multiple applications. It's just time, which we can do, but we're just trying to manage it for an efficient process. So we appreciate your consideration. Is that helpful?
I have a follow-up question, if you don't mind.
Oh, go ahead.
Does your application process, I understand that the school district building code is different than the village building code, and you have a separate building code review process for the additions you're making.
We have a special, we go through the
Right.
special use permitting.
So that's the zoning part?
Yeah, are you talking about our bidding? Because it's regulated.
Sorry.
Okay.
There was a question about whether or not the conveyance of the playground versus the gym space would affect your progress on your project. And I guess I'd like to know your side of that question.
Well, I'm a volunteer president of a school board, and I am not involved in the permitting process. We leave that to staff.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. My understanding is that it would require us to redraw the property, submit for permits from that standpoint, and then redraw it again if there was a change or a conveyance that modified it. I don't think it would necessarily impact the architectural plans. It's just a multi-step, it would just be multi-step. We'd rather just, if we're gonna do it once. And that's it, it's just time and money, that's all.
super random question. Who owns the playground equipment?
We do. We do. We
Okay.
spend, $250,000 in replacing the playground.
Right, that's what I suspected.
Yeah, yeah. They were out there pruning it and putting in mulch last week when I was out there as part of the Adventures in Learning program. Yeah, they care for it, and it does have a fence right now, but it's not fully enclosed. And as noted, that is one of the top recommendations from our security consultants. So that is, we'll be working with the village on that.
Yeah, I just think it's a classic example of we don't have a better alternative to a negotiated agreement. Like that seems to align perfectly. We're not gonna go in and kick District 36 and have them pull out their playground equipment. And then if we did, what would we do with it?
We've cooperated forever.
Cooperated forever. We have been a good partner forever by letting that playground equipment be available
We have
on
no-
Park District
what would-
property.
I think the school district existed before the park district.
No.
Right?
Land was
You
Park
guys,
District
the
land.
government body though, right? The park district, anyway.
Look,
I hope that we can
discussing
figure it
this-
out.
we've been discussing this for a very long
I was
time.
gonna say the
This is
idea
not a
is-
rush decision,
yeah.
but it is something that deserves a decision.
Absolutely. So I
I
appreciate your
just would
consideration.
say though, for the large property, I mean, 3 years on the IGA for the gym use seems a little short.
Okay, we'll work on that.
Okay?
Can I ask a,
No, 3 years, no, 3 years on the gym?
The IGA is,
I don't
is
think
3 years,
that's-
unless it's changed.
Okay, well,
We'll work on
we'll work on it.
James Hemmings has a question.
Oh, for me?
no, not for you.
Okay.
You're welcome to try to answer it if you want. I guess I don't see a harm in voting on the two separate parcels separately. I mean, there are obviously commissioners who have differing opinions relating to different pieces of land. And I think it's fair to allow them to express their viewpoint on that. They may be different, depending on the land we're talking about. A lot of people here may have the same viewpoint on both pieces of land. I don't know what the reason is why we don't have two separate votes, one land and the other piece of land.
I have no problem with
All
that.
right, so let's
I just want to vote.
Let's amend the motion that we'll do an motion A, which is moving to convey the, authorizing staff to create an agreement for the use of Coeur Island Woods, the 8,000 square foot gym parcel, to create an agreement to convey the 8,000 square foot gym parcel. That will be the first question.
So from a parliamentary perspective.
Correct.
You have a motion on the floor.
Correct.
So I would ask for a motion to divide the question
Okay.
between the 8,000 square
Perfect.
foot property and the first grade playground.
Excellent. May I have a motion to divide the parcels, the property? into
So-
two?
Right, divide the question.
Divide the
right?
Divide the
question.
Excellent, okay. Now we
I
ask
second
for a
that.
motion, okay, second,
So you can vote on amending the motion.
excellent. May I have a roll call on amending the motion?
Commissioner Hemmings?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kroto?
Yes,
That motion passes.
okay. Now we need a motion for the gym, the 8,000 square foot gym parcel, correct?
It's already on the floor.
Okay,
So
perfect.
now you can vote on just the 8,000.
Excellent.
parcel.
I think we're ready for a roll call on the gym parcel.
With
It's
the
more than a
caveat that the conveyance is without any compensation from D36. In other words, we are transferring
The
this
gym parcel,
parcel
the 8,000 square foot gym parcel.
without consideration.
Well, we gotta give it to Adam.
Yeah.
We gotta give it, is it for $10, another good and valuable consideration, blah, 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 whatever. I mean, there is consideration, that's the point. The consideration is the use of the gym.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all in the agreement.
Yeah.
So we will be voting again on the agreement though.
Yes.
Like we're voting on the direction tonight and then we'll be reviewing the agreement in August.
August 17th.
Correct.
Okay.
And we will be receiving the agreement well in advance of August 17th.
We should, yes. Okay, so we have this motion. Are we ready for a roll call, Denise, on the conveyance, the authorization to the staff to create an agreement to convey the gym, 8,000 square foot gym parcel
And class, just, it's more than.
and classrooms? Thank you.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmings?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Proto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Okay. And now I would like to ask for a motion to convey.
To authorize staff to create.
To authorize staff to create an agreement to convey with a reverter clause the 26,000 square foot playground parcel. May I have a second? Who was the-
So moved.
So moved, sorry, Warren,
Second.
Eric. May I have a roll call vote for that?
Commissioner Hemmings?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
No.
Commissioner Root?
No.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Proto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to new business. 9.1, presentation by GovHR regarding job classification and market salary study presentation. We have with us Joe Ellen, Kadamatori.
Yes.
Natalia, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is the microphone on Costa?
I'm not sure if it is.
Okay, can you hear me? All right, good evening. Yes, Joelle Kadamatori, Voucher USA. Good evening, and thank you for having me to talk with you about your classification and compensation study. I just want to tell you up front that, a study like this is something that we're required to engage the employees to do this, not only the Park District Administration, but the staff. And in order to do this and for us to get our information, they really have to be engaged and give us information, and they did that. So it's an emotional thing. I've done many park districts in Illinois, and the staff is terrific. So I want you to know that up front, because it does take a little bit of time to get into the weeds to look at all of the data. So just, you have the report, so the overview, we were asked to do a classification and compensation study, and that's two pieces. The first part of it is job evaluation, where we look at all the positions in the park district, and we look at whether or not they're classified correctly, and we establish what we call internal equity. So we did that. We engaged the employees, they filled out a questionnaire, we interviewed at least one person in each classification, and we developed what we call a classification plan. So in the report that you have, there's a narrative, and at the very end of the narrative, there's table 1, which is your classification plan. The other side of what we did was compensation. And we looked at all of the positions in the park district. We looked at your market, which is generally this area, different park districts, and we gathered compensation information. We analyzed all of that, and we made a recommendation at different percentiles for you to consider. We started our calculations at the 50th percentile, and we went up to the 65th percentile. And I've done this work on the North Shore. So we just finished Bullet the second time. We've done Highland Park, we've done NSSRA, we've done Glenview, which is a little bit west of here, as you know. And all of those park districts, the lowest percentile that we calculated was the 60th percentile as far as the pay philosophy. So when you think about
60%.
60 is the
Yeah.
lowest, okay? So when you think about a few things, and Beth can talk with you, and she will talk with you about implementation strategy and cost and all of that, there's a couple of things to consider. One is how you want to structure your plan, your compensation plan. And what we're recommending is what we call an open range merit plan, where you have the minimum pay and then the maximum pay for each grade in your plan, and people move through that based on performance. You will do a general increase. I don't call it a cost of living increase, because nobody does cost of living increases. When the cost of living was virtually 0, people were doing 2%. Now that it's higher, they're still doing 2%. So it's a general increase. So you want to look at your compensation plan, you want to look at the market, you want to adjust it, and consider giving people a general increase. On top of that, you want to consider a merit pay component, where the Park District Administration can look at the performance of the employees, and that's how they're going to range. So your compensation plan is one decision point. A second decision point is your pay philosophy. So the pay philosophy relates to a percentile. And we always start at the 50th percentile, which is the exact middle of the data. So if you were considering a 50th percentile pay philosophy, 50% of the park districts that we surveyed pay more for the same position, 50% pay less. So for you, we calculated 50th, 55th, 60th, and 65th. And, as I mentioned, the lowest I've calculated in this area is the 60th. And so the reason why you want to at least consider that is because the 60th percentile will be above average. If you look at the 50th, it's the exact middle, which could be above or below average. So if you can go to the 60th, which really doesn't mean 10% more in pay, if you look at the data sheets in the report, it's incrementally more, but the message it sends to the employees is that you are an above average payer, and it's a good strategy when you're thinking about recruitment and retention of your staff, okay? And then the last thing is your internal equity. So one of the things that Beth and I have talked about at length is looking at how would you implement something like this. So a very easy way to do it is for people with their current pay that's below the minimum of your range, you want to bring them up to the minimum because they're below market. Anyone whose current pay is within the range, that's great. They're at market, so we move them in at their current pay. And then I think there's one person that was above, and that's just a function of the market. It could be a job was reclassified. You don't want to lower someone's pay because eventually as you adjust your ranges, it will catch up and the person's pay will fall back in. So that's a very easy way to implement, but one of the things to consider is your internal equity. So if you have a very long-term employee that is at the bottom of the new range, what it's telling you is that position really hasn't kept up with the market. So that's a different strategy for implementation, which Beth will talk with you about later. But what I'm here tonight to talk to you about is just generally what we'll be asked to do. Those are 3 decision points for you. There is a lot of detail in the report. There is a narrative that generally explains everything, but the tables that follow the narrative are really the meat of the report. It establishes your classification plan. It establishes what we call internal equity, which is very important because you look at the park district positions as they relate to each other in Winnetka. So even if you went to Wilmette or Highland Park, I should say Wilmette or Highland Park, the same position may or may not do the exact same thing. So we learn about your work here and we make a classification plan that's unique to your district. And that's important because internal equity groups the positions with similar complexity into the same pay grade, and then we recommend the same pay range. So, at some point when you talk about pay equity, this system complies with any pay equity. If there's ever a law or something that you have to comply with, it will do that for you. So internal equity is important for your district, and we've established that for you. And then the market, looking at all of the other districts around here, looking at what they're paying, calculating those different percentiles, and making a recommendation to you. We gave you a range from the 50th to the 65th. My recommendation is the 60th or higher. At some point, if you have to start at the 50th, if you can work to the 60th or higher, that will help you in the long run to attract and retain your employees. So that's what we're asked to do. I know it's quick. I know you have a lot on your agenda, and I know you have the report. So I tried to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what we were asked to do.
I just wanted to ask you to repeat the second step of the adjustment process. The first adjustment is those people that are below the minimum, bring them up. What was the second step?
The second was if people are in the range at their current pay, they move in at their current pay.
Okay.
But that's like I said, that's a very basic recommendation.
Right.
What Beth and I talked about was an internal equity potential adjustment, because if somebody has been a long-term employee and they move into the range and they're at the very bottom, you might want to consider doing something at implementation, which is a different strategy. So I was just highlighting something that's very basic.
Perfect. Okay. Perfect. That was my only question.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
It
I know that was fast.
Very interesting. We did this process without a consultant during COVID because we had to make some adjustments for some substantial increases in cost of living, and the way that you have to slice and dice it to make it equitable is very challenging. Very challenging.
It can be.
Yes. Okay. Any questions?
I had 2 that were more high level. One for park districts. Like this was just focused on salary. but is there a whole like value of your total employment package message that differentiates between the park districts, or are they all completely standardized with the IMRF plan, the medical, the dental? Because that way the
Right.
park district employers differentiate in the way that corporate employers do, or is it really just about the salary and that's how you differentiate your park district from
So
others?
sometimes we're asked to look at benefits, and, you know, your benefits, usually we say in the public sector is about 40% increase over a base salary. Okay, you know, and it depends on your package, but I have studied both village and districts, park districts around the you know, Illinois, around the country, and public sector benefit packages are generally similar. There would be different nuances, maybe the contribution to the health insurance, you know, from the district might be a little bit higher than from one to another. You might get an extra personal day, you know, but generally the package is similar. And it is a little bit different from the public sector, I mean the private sector.
Okay, yeah, okay, that's good to know. And then my second question was, it looked like there was lots of really good data comparing the, you know, the park districts. And one of the things that I think that we have struggled with as a park district is making sure that we are adequately staffed, so that staff, you know, there are people to cover all the tasks of the park district. We've gone through periods where we are lighter than we are now. We've tried to adjust for that. And I'm just wondering if with the data that you have about all these park districts, separate from the compensation, is there a way to look at, like, do we have the optimal number of people for the size of our park district and the characteristics of our park district versus others? So it's a different research question, but it is one that we have, I'd say, discussed, struggled with, considered as a board, and I just want to put that out there as, you know, is that an area in the future that you could help with?
Yeah, that's a staffing
something?
analysis, yes, we can do it. So it's a different type of study.
Okay.
I think what's important about that is really determining the services, your service delivery model, and making sure that you're comparing apples to apples. So for example, I've done in the past where, you know, you might have an area, say tennis, okay, it's more robust in Winnetka, and you're going to staff it at a higher level. So if you went to Wilmette and they have less staff, you can't just look at the numbers, you have to understand the service delivery model. So when you do a staffing analysis, that's the first step, is understanding the service delivery model, what you want to offer, and then you can go to the other districts, see where they are, but you need to understand that piece of it to make sure that you're comparing it correctly. You can't just look at the numbers. So it is a different type of study though.
Okay, so is that something that you need additional input from us via like our strategic plan, or is that something that you just can come in and do with our current?
No, I can work with Beth and your staff. I mean, because really you're looking at what is the, I mean, if your strategic initiatives are saying you want to build up an area or something, we would need to understand that. So you want to understand the overall strategic direction, but then you can work with the staff to say, okay, what is exactly happening? What is the service delivery model? How does this relate to the strategic direction, the budget initiatives? And once you understand that, then you could compare to other districts.
Okay, and is the staff satisfaction input into that staffing analysis, or?
You could do that, that's another, a little
total
bit, that's a
different
little
thing. Okay,
nuance to
okay.
it, but you could do something like that as well.
Okay.
But each of these additional studies is an additional contract and additional analysis.
They're different,
Right.
It's different approach.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an overwhelming amount of work or anything like that, but it is a different type of study.
Okay, no, good to know, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Okay.
It was very interesting reading.
Okay.
We have 9.2, Personnel
Thank you.
Policy Manual Update, Beth Doster.
So this is just an update. As you know, we've been working on the updating the policy manual. I think in the past couple of years you've made minor changes to it and added policies when needed, but this was a total review. And so the proposed plan, so it's now with a lawyer for final review after all of our suggested updates, proposed updates. I expect to get that back from them Monday, latest Tuesday, and then my plan is to give you a more detailed memo of big picture changes to the manual around document integrity. So making it gender neutral, making, like, reordering it.
Not being repetitive.
Not being repetitive. Compliance, so are we in compliance? Is everything we need to be following federal, state, local laws in there, and updated, laws change. And then the other piece to it is, what's the other piece? Sorry. Compliance.
Park district competitiveness?
Yes. And so I'm suggesting just a few changes in our benefits. Not that you can't consider to be more generous, but I did a short survey with some of the local park districts. Not everybody responded, but those that did, I did get some information on what are some of the, I only asked them a select few that I kind of had questions on, and then I asked them about their benefits, what paid benefits they have for their part-time people. So that we can try and, because that's where I'm hearing we do have a lot of turnover, and so trying to be more competitive, and if some of the other local park districts are offering different benefits, then we might want to consider looking at that as well. So I did add a few suggestions, and so what I will upload in Diligent once I get the proposed draft back from the lawyer with their suggested changes is I'll make a clean copy. So I will upload a new memo, the highlighted, marked up version for those of you who like detail, and then a clean version for those of you who just want to take a look. The marked up version is pretty long, so that's why I'm doing it this way, so then over the next few weeks, you have a chance to review proposed changes and then send me questions via email that you might have, so that I can be answering those questions over the next couple of weeks, so that I can hopefully present a final draft
August 17th.
For the August 17 for a vote.
I just want to, I've had a number of conversations with Beth about this, and I just want to say, she's working on like a total rewards sort of conversation with each employee to help them understand the totality of the benefits. She's done a lot of, and she's made many initiatives in trying to get us into compliance, and I'm so grateful for your efforts. I am very, very grateful we have a professional in this part of our team. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing the heavy lifting.
Yes.
Really, truly.
Looking forward to seeing that document. Ray.
Yeah.
Consideration.
I guess I got the next
Yes.
four.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent.
If you don't mind, I think.
You've got 5
here.
minutes. Go and take all the time you need.
All right. Well, I'll start with the first one. Park staff has identified our 2009 F-350 as the truck that needs replacement. We've identified a new Chevy Silverado crew cab as a replacement. As previously presented in November, number 5 and number 10 were originally paired with number 11 to be replaced this year. Throughout the season, conditions have sort of changed, where we've identified some problems with our truck 15, where it's the staff's recommendation that we postpone replacement of number 5 and number 10, so that way we can go ahead and replace truck number 15, which is, it's a dump truck. It's more of our bread and butter workhorse. It's got some damage to it that is beyond what we want to spend money on at this time. It's got some frame to hinge damage where we actually can't even use the lift function on it anymore. In addition to that, I think even the hydraulic system has failed. So I'd like to move forward with one dump truck in replacement of 2 smaller regular pickup trucks. So number 5 and number 10 would be deferred until next year, so that way we could move forward to this. I'll touch on where we sit budget-wise when I talk about number 11 combined with number 15. But we normally worked with in the past, worked with suburban purchasing co-op that allowed us to, avoid the bid process, but not to avoid it on purpose, but to get trucks that were already pre-bid. And we usually went Fords just so we maintain a fleet that was all the same, so we could keep all the same parts. Our mechanics are more familiar with that truck. In this case, Fords have been very difficult to come across. The co-op that we normally bought from for the last 2.5 years has just pushed the buck down the road. And every time we go back to them, they say it's going to be at the end of the next quarter. And so we're at the point now that the staff can't keep pushing it down the road, and we need to make a decision on a truck that we can get sooner rather than later. And after doing some research and actually going to dealers just to see what the market was and getting some just off the lot prices, the prices were far greater than where we normally purchase them at. Going through the co-op, not only did we get the benefits of pre-bid stuff, but with the government discount piece was almost like $20,000 per vehicle. That's gone away. So I did, after doing a little bit more research, I did find it's the National Auto Fleet Group. I think they're out of California. But they do the same kind of thing. It's all pre-bid. But their government discount is a fraction of what it used to be. So things are going to be higher than anticipated. So working with them, I was able to build a truck, but I was not able to do a Ford at this time. Chevys were available, and at this point, with the conditions of our vehicles, we're totally happy with going with what we can get to help the crew out. So we've identified a Chevy Silverado. It is slightly different in the fact that it's going to be a 4-door versus a regular cab. It seems to help our crew. After asking our crew, I think it'll help them not have to take a secondary vehicle out to a work site, and they can use one truck more efficiently. And so staff's been kind of wanting something like that for some time, so it didn't really add much cost to it either. So that would be for the gross, let's see, that was for the price of, sorry.
66.
Yeah, 60,000. That was before the upfitting of the bed, with a total cost of $74,160 or $146. We anticipate the trade-in based on doing this a long time, that the conditions of that truck is about $7,500. So that would give a net price of $66,646. And then, like I said, the National Auto Fleet Group is a purchasing organization serving governmental agencies. By purchasing through them, and they're under a Sourcewell contract, this will allow staff to get this at greater cost savings and avoid the forfeiture process.
Okay.
So it's our recommendation to go with the truck.
May I have a motion to approve the purchase of Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD dump truck as presented for the estimated net price of $66,646.44?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? May I have a roll call?
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmings?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Koto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
move on to the next one.
Next one, I'll maybe shorten this one because it's not as complicated as far as substituting 2 trucks for 1. This was originally part of the budget, so this is truck number 11. And it's clear on this one, it's 2005, so it's even older. It's almost 18 years old, so we've definitely got our money's worth out of this particular vehicle. You can almost see through it these days. So this is typically used by the landscape horticultural crew. This will be a regular cab, so not a crew cab. It'll be a shorter truck, but we will be outfitting this with a plow. So that way it'll basically replace what we're getting rid of. So it'll also do horticultural work and also snow removal in the wintertime. Same auto fleet group. And then this would be the, after us, again, we anticipate about the same trade-in for this. It might be lower, but the other one might be higher, so the average between the two is probably gonna be right around that $15,000 mark based on actual estimates that I've got. So that gives a net price of $73,638. And yeah, staff recommends the purchase of 1 new Chevy Silverado 3500, again from National Auto Fleet.
Okay, so we have $73,639.94. Does that sound right?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's
Yep.
okay. I just want to make
And
sure.
then that combined with the other truck, which obviously the dump truck is more expensive than the 2 smaller trucks, it still brings us in, I think, $6,000 under our budget that we put forward in November, which was 146,000. I think we're at 140 change.
Okay, perfect. May I have a motion to approve the purchase of Chevrolet? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Just a recommendation to bring back a resolution to declare that trucks are trading in as surplus, so that we can authorize the conveyance of those.
Yes.
Christine, if I can also make a recommendation real
Yes.
quick. Since we are suggesting that we are estimating to get $7,500 per truck, I think it would be advantageous for the board to authorize the combined purchase price as selected without the trade-in in case the trade goes lower, so we're not handcuffed to the amount of $73,638.94, but to authorize approval to purchase at the combined total price of $81,138.94. That gives us grace if the truck comes in at $6,200. It gives us some breathing room. Hopefully, the truck will come in at greater than $7,500. But I'd like to make that adjustment here because that'll also help offset the cost for the other trading as well.
Okay, perfect. So I have $81,139.94.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. May I have a motion to approve the purchase of Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD dump truck as presented for the estimated gross price of $81,139.94, and with the understanding that there will be a trade-in value approximately $7,500.
Correct. We will declare both vehicles surplus and we will trade them in.
Okay.
So
Any
moved.
Thank you. Eric, second?
Second.
Thank you, Cynthia. Any discussion? Very well described, thank you very much. May I
Thank
have a
you,
roll-
Greg.
May I have a roll call?
Commissioner Hemmings?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Proto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Excellent.
Wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more,
There's
I
one-
know.
2 more. We've also identified our forklift, the 1993 TCM 5,000-pound forklift, as needing to be replaced. We've identified a 2023 Heister H60UT as the best replacement option. This forklift is typically used every day, 10 times a day, both at our shop and around the district. We've used them for some special events as well. We went out to bid for this one. Ultimate Material Handling submitted a bid for one 2023 Heister model. We also got another bid from Octane Forklifts. After reviewing the bids, the Heister came in at $40,941. They did provide a trade-in value of $1,200, giving their net bid at $39,741. Upon reviewing Octane Forklift's bid, which was lower, for several reasons, as discussed with staff, it's our recommendation to actually go with the Heister model. So the bid notice was advertised at Trip Local on Thursday, June 22nd. At the time of the bid opening, we received 2 sealed bids. Reviewing the bids, we decided to go with not go with the lower bid and to accept the bid from Atlas Material. The reasons are several. First being the lead time for Octane forklifts was a minimum of 230 days, and they said it could go to 270 and possibly even further. Atlas Material has a forklift available for us next month. In addition to that, I'm just doing my due diligence and research on Octane forklifts, which I've never heard of. I was unable to get a whole lot of reviews on the product, not a whole lot of information. We currently own a Heister model over at the Golf's maintenance facility, so we would be more familiar with the product quality, parts availability. And then when I did call Octane Forklifts to get some of the questions I had answered with regard to lead time and some other stuff about the product, nobody answered the phone for a week. And it apparently just goes to the CEO, and it took him 7 days to get back to me. And then when I asked him about lead time, he indicated that that's because parts are really hard to get. So it's staff's recommendation to go with something a little bit more mainstream, even though it's more expensive, and a product that we know. So I would recommend the Heister H60UT from Atlas Material with the trade-in allowance giving the net price of $39,741.
Excellent. May I have a motion to approve the purchase of forklift H60ET 2023 Heister for the price of $39,741?
Is the trade-in on this more secure than the truck?
Yes,
Okay.
this will go
Yes.
and not necessarily have to be labeled as surplus. It'll go out as part of that. We'll update this surplus property.
But the trade-in value is not something changed.
No,
It wasn't
it's not
estimated. That was $1,200 on the actual bid.
May I have a motion as stated?
So moved.
Thank you. Colleen?
Second.
Thank you. Eric? May I have a roll call, Denise?
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Commissioner Koto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Okay, there's more.
Yeah, all right. This one is for the split rail fence replacement at Northfield Park. Park staff has again identified the need to replace the split rail fence that encompasses the park at Northfield Park. It's about, I think, a little less than 1,000 linear feet of fencing, and then also an access gate. As previously presented, it was identified the existing fence has aged beyond its useful life. It's been there as long as I've been at the park district, and I think even longer, so I think it's at least 25 years old. It's become a maintenance issue for the Parks Department to keep propping it up and fixing the rails. And at some point, you know, the posts are actually pretty much gone within the soil. So we did contact Bear Construction. They submitted a quote for approximately 915 feet of new 3-foot tall western cedar 2-rail round split rail fence. It's a little bit different than what's out there. Right now it's a Gothic top, it's kind of square post, squared rails. We're trying to standardize our fencing across a lot of the parks. One, I think it'll kind of help bring Northfield into the look of the rest of the district. And we've got it out at a lot of our lakefront properties, from Lloyd to Maple. Crow Island has the same type of fencing. Having a kind of standard makes it easier on maintenance level. Optically, I think it's kind of a nice thing to have this similar type of fencing. So that's the type that we recommended, their quote, and they had an installed price of $38,724.51, and that includes removal and disposal of the existing fence and footings, installation of the new split rail fence. I have attached documents. To get to the money part, the anticipated budget price for this work was $30,000 as presented in November. The higher than normal material and labor costs combined with the need to use prevailing wage has really driven everything up as we've seen lately. While the price for this work has exceeded the estimated estimate presented in November, staff has been able to identify savings in other areas, and we're currently working on other areas to cut back on to make up for the difference. One being the trucks came in a little less. We're also working at some backstops at two of our other parks that instead of doing a complete tear out and replacement, we've identified the ability to maybe electrostatically paint some of the poles and just have the fabric replaced. So that would be at a greater cost savings to the park district to sort of offset some of this other stuff that's going over the budget. So Bear Construction put the proposal through the Choice Partners Cooperative Contract. So again, it's all pre-bid stuff. By using the cooperative contract, this allows staff to contract with Bear Construction at greater cost savings and not go through the formal bid process. So we recommend using Bear Construction. Additionally, I have, even though we didn't necessarily need to do it, we have additional quotes outside of that, and both of which came in over $40,000. So I have backup on that as well. And that was without prevailing wage.
Yeah,
So
yeah, wow, so that would have gone even higher.
that would have gone even higher. So.
Well, I appreciate that you looked for places to cover the sort of over budget component. Okay. May I have a motion to approve the proposal by Bear Construction for the removal and installation of the fence at Northfield Park for the price of $38,724.51?
So moved.
Wow, 3 people, okay. Raise your hand if you feel like you've gotten enough.
Can you feel the love
motions signed.
tonight?
Yeah. Okay, this went to Jeff and Jai. All right, yes, okay.
Is that
And
your
then for the
first?
second?
That is first.
No. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Cynthia, thank you. And can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmings?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Coto?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Recruiting proposals regarding search for next executive director.
Yep, so the board previously authorized or selected GovHR for purposes of the recruiting process for the next executive director. The proposal that they offered on page 6 of that, page 9 of that proposal gives the different phases that go into their overall process, if you will. So there's a complete process offered by GovHR for the total price of $24,500. So it's, I think they have proven themselves to be a valuable recruiting entity, along with some of the other services that they provide. I know that there was consideration for 3 other firms, and the selection, I think, is an excellent one. Some of the services that GovHR provides are complementary to another entity, Epley Institute. And I kind of stumbled across Epley Institute through Molly Hemmer, who is the current executive director for the Northbrook Park District. She was hired into that Northbrook Park District through the 1-2 punch of the recruiting firm and then Epley Institute. And Epley Institute essentially takes candidates, once you get down to your, say, the 4 candidates that you're considering as a board, they'll put those candidates through a day in the life of the executive director role with the Winnetka Park District. So it's really a pretty interesting test model, or a test drive, if you will, of the candidates to see how each of the candidates perform, to then give you greater content from which you can make a decision. So I think there's a value to the Eppley Institute competency and services, so much so that Northbrook is now using them again as Molly serves her final month and a half. She will retire in early September. They're using the 1-2 punch with Eppley Institute being the second punch, if you will, to ensure they get the test drive of their final candidates before they select that candidate. So there's information regarding the Eppley Institute capability, which I think I sent out in a memo somewhere around $14,000, if I remember correctly, subject to our selection of what we want them to do. I also think we could go back to GovHR, subject to the board's, it's not a vote, if you will, but I could work with Christina to go back and ask GovHR to potentially reduce their service fee. If there's a service that's currently being proposed by GovHR that we would actually want Eppley Institute to provide.
Also, we have become a frequent flyer at
Oh, yeah.
HR, and consequently, we deserve sort of a volume discount.
Yeah.
So
nothing to vote on necessarily, but I also think it's a purposeful direction for the board to consider. So.
And were you planning on setting up a meeting with Eppley? Still working?
Yep.
Okay.
If you're
I would love to meet them. I
Okay.
mean, I would just love to sort of hear what they think their value add is.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Make that
I mean,
happen
yeah.
next week.
You've met with them?
Talked with them over the phone.
Okay,
a
so it
couple of
might be
times.
useful for the three of us, if available. If not, I can report.
And I think also talking with Molly would be valuable.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Yep.
And John, well, now we're doing staff reports. Anyone at the staff feel that they have enough opportunities to speak about their work today? Or there are more additional work projects that you're doing? Probably you.
I have a few updates.
Yes, I'm sure you have more.
Yeah. So Nick Corwin is now 100% complete. There was one outstanding item in regards to some stonework that was installed not per plan. So they were going back and forth to get the mason back out to get that work done. That is now 100% complete. So we're waiting on the final as-built and paperwork. So we'll get the final cost out there so we get the final closeout documents and put that behind us, close that chapter. But that is a project that has been enjoyed very well by the community and local soccer groups and so forth as well. Of course, stormwater, you're going to see a payment coming up later this month for $257,000 for the work that's been completed to date. This is the next installment. I'll work with Cynthia to review, as we've done in the past, to talk through that, just to understand the scope and scale of what that payment is. But once again, just to compliment the Kemper team and the work that's being done. It's been a great collaboration, and the work done with Rick Jacobson and his eye for detail on the golf course and the sketches and illustrations that he puts together and the vision that man has to take a course from what it was to the potential that it has to be is remarkable. So
Is any of us going to be able to play it?
What's that?
Is any of us going to be able to play it?
Soon enough.
No, I mean, at a skill level.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
There are
You will-
lessons for you.
We got some favorable cart pack bounces now,
Yes.
so yes.
Thank you.
But yeah, so that's been working out very well. Platform tennis, that project is now complete. I'd like to commend Greg and the efforts of the Parks team, of course, for their work to do to kind of pivot in the 11th hour to address some ideas that Colin had for the walkway. So there is now a donor walkway that has been installed with pavers to recognize those individuals that help contribute towards the development of those courts.
Oh, great idea.
So they were able to complete that and get that installed based on the due diligence from Colin and his team to help support that project. But final payment for that will be issued shortly. So once again, another voucher to be on the lookout for. And then lastly, from my side, tennis court, the work that was approved for the outdoor tennis courts, the color coding of courts 8 through 12 is now complete. Courts were completed Monday with the striping, and the community was able to enjoy those as of Tuesday this week. From my discussions with Pat, great outturn from the community, all thrilled with the work that was done and completed. So all the crack filling that needed to be done, and this, the armor repair that, as it's called, for the slope surface crack repair has been complete. So now we'll be able to enjoy those courts for years to come, and allows not only the ability for patron play, but also the ability for future programming. Thank you. Whether or not the the tennis program comes back for the summer and so forth, but we'll have the facilities to house those programs. So that's just another great effort among staff and the community, and I think that worked out really well. That's all I have for tonight.
In addition to all of the contributions you made earlier. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, I like to talk.
Jim, do you have anything in addition you'd like to say?
Yeah, we've opened the system for 2024 budget.
Okay.
We've initiated that process.
Oh my gosh,
We're getting a
yeah.
slightly earlier start this year than we did last year. So
Okay, good.
trying to build in a little extra time to give everybody more analysis and thoughtful consideration for what they want for 2024. So that's well underway.
I think Beth's work dovetails really well with Jim's overall work,
Yeah.
because the decisions made for the classification and compensation study
Correct.
will be factored into the budget, as well as some of the personnel policy changes, which have a small cost component, part of the budget process, so it should work well.
Okay, great. All right, good. Any other staff reports? Denise? Okay. Adam Simon, practically staff. All right. Matters of the director?
I have two real quick items. So the Hap Road corridor project. So you may or may not know the executive director for the Village of Northfield is in her role working on special projects. So she and I had a conversation yesterday to ensure that there's still momentum around this Hap Road corridor project. There is. So we're going to start, bringing some more information to the board for its consideration. Nothing's changed. The temporary easement that they're looking for on the east side of Hap Road Park to ensure that the now 8-foot wide walkway and bike lane shared use path is something they can install. So it's right on path with where we were in December, but just wanted to let you know you're going to start to hear more about it soon. But wanted to alert you to the fact that while you may read about changes in their leadership at the Village of Northfield, we do have consistency with those who are aware of the project. From a expense perspective on legal expenses, the most recent expenses received but yet to be paid from Ansel Blink and Robin Schwartz. Our year-to-date legal expenses are $109,864.02. The total from 2019 to present is $626,549.20. We also factored that information into the elder centennial fees. Year-to-date, those fees are $165,775.63. More information to be added relative to Red Barn and or Lakota Group, so that has yet to be updated, but I'll give you an updated spreadsheet for both in short order.
Is that 626,000 for legal?
Yeah.
Or is that for elder centennial?
The 626,000 is just for legal, across the board.
From
It included,
2019.
Oh, from 2019.
From
Yeah.
2019 forward
Okay,
on.
I was gonna have a heart attack.
Yeah.
I was like, no, we only funded a couple $100,000.
No, you signed that. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
it's
exactly.
all- Yeah, it's good. All right, okay.
Hey,
Um,
May I ask
yes.
a question
Yes.
of the director? And this really is, President, kind of your comment that we're tying in comments we've received from the public. We have 2 tonight on safety. I have a question. I know that we engage a patrol at the tower during certain times. Does that patrol go to all of our parks, or
Yep.
do they stay at the tower?
So in the pre-meeting conversation I had with Mary Garrison, I confirmed with her that Selden Security, which is the name of the firm, should be going to Elder and Centennial, so I'll double back and have a conversation with them. Costa and I and Kyle will reach out to, Commander O'Connell, or Chief O'Connell, sorry, to make sure that what could be closed in the way of gates can be closed, right? So there was reference to the Elder Park gate. Can we close that or can we not close it? Who's responsible for closing it? So we'll look into both those matters for Elder and Centennial.
As you visit with Winnebago's finest, I wonder if it would be possible for them on a regular basis just to go down that road and kind of, it appears, and this is my editorial, it appears that it is heavily trafficked with visitors on the weekends. toward the evening. And so, you know, I don't know what our police does with our beaches. But that would be, I think that would have a, I don't want to use the word deterrent, but I think that it would be effective and it might address some of the safety concerns that we're hearing from our public. And this is my neighborhood, so I hear from everybody.
I'll double check on their participation or their visits to Elder and Centennial. I do know that, as an example, they do go to Cherry Street Beach. That was part of the overall assessment of the collaboration between the Village of Winnetka and the Park District, and how Sullivan Security also factors into Cherry Street Beach. But I'll double check on how they
If I can
touch base on
assist you, you have many duties. If I can help in any way here, I volunteer to work with you on this, just to see if we can't get a little more attention at the Elder Beach. Thank you so much.
John, just a clarification point on the gate closure. The gate that is at the top of the drive access road at Elder is damaged beyond repair. It's rotten out and it literally fell off the hinges literally. So that is no longer in place, and there's barricades in place, and staff put up, you know, I can't tell you how many times they've put up snow fencing across there where it gets literally torn down on the daily. So if there is direction from the park board to secure that better, we can put up sections of, you know, chain link fencing across there to better secure that site. But I would ask for board direction on how they would like that site secured to make sure we're following the intent of what we should be doing.
Is it appropriate to advance that motion now for chain link fencing?
It wouldn't be a motion. I mean, we have materials in-house. It would just be just the direction.
But there is still a need for potential access to that road.
We would make sure that whoever needs to gain access could gain access.
I'm just thinking about emergency situations that have arisen.
Police and fire, yeah.
Where they have used that road to get down there.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tricky situation.
We don't want to invest in another gate that might not really serve value, especially if our plan moves forward to widen the road, it's not gonna work anymore. So I just want to make sure that we're all in the same place and on the same wavelength to make sure we're not putting forward a false effort.
But you do a coded, like lock that.
We could manage anything.
No, I'm saying like you share that code with the police and fire.
We can double lock and a daisy chain it so it's secured by both entities, but the police have a master key to our locks on the lakefront, so it's a non-issue. They have it in each patrol car, so I'm not really worried about that.
Okay.
But we would constitute us putting a gate in there for them to access, which we can do, but I just want to make sure I got clear direction from the board on what we should do.
I think we should, subject to the police and fire saying yes.
I would look into it.
Why don't we
Just because,
explore
like,
that a little further?
For EMT,
Yeah, if they
a locked
agree,
gate
yes,
can mean
if they, yes.
They can't get
a
out.
life of difference.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not really worried about FD. They're just gonna snip whatever they need to get through, especially if it's a lock, they have a magic key, they'll just cut it out of their way, and it'll take them 30 seconds to get in. I'm not worried about that. It's just site security from what we're hearing and what was discussed with the increased patrols and so forth. I think this would be a step in the right direction if the board feels it's appropriate.
Yeah, I would like to move forward. I'd like to make sure that it's okay with the police and the fire department. But I'd like to move forward with something that provides good, quick access, but also secures it.
But realize that is a neighborhood beach for a number of people, even though we say it is closed. The people in the neighborhood have come and asked us to be able to use it. So if we, you know, I quite frankly would feel a lot better just seeing our police as a visible presence there.
Can I offer that we at least look into a plan for a fence and then bring it back to the board? And then also conversations with the police and fire, and then
bring it back to August 17th.
Thank you.
Sure.
I agree.
No problem.
Okay. Remarks from visitors is your opportunity. Oh, excuse me, board liaison reports. It's at the bottom of the page. Any liaison reports? I have no report. Anyone else?
think that we've all been following the village. I don't think I need to speak at length here.
Okay. Fine. Remarks from visitors? Go, oh.
Can I say something about board
Yes.
liaison?
Yeah.
I wasn't here over the 4th of July. We had a big family gathering, pre-planned. I wasn't able to attend the special meeting. I was disappointed, given the intent of intergovernmental cooperation, that the village would publish proposed ordinances Friday, holiday weekend, and schedule a meeting on Thursday, July 6th for consideration of those ordinances. I think the Park District responded appropriately in calling for a special meeting in order that the Park District Board could collectively express its opinion. Again, I'm sorry that I wasn't here to help in that effort. But again, what I heard, comments about intergovernmental cooperation, I believe that this board has made extraordinary efforts to listen and to cooperate and collaborate with the village for the betterment of our community. I know when I signed up for this board, I had no personal agenda, only to advance the interests of my community. It's super unfortunate, in my opinion, that we had a changing of the guard, a new president, met with the village president in June, and there were comments made by Mickey Archambault at the prior meeting about coming together to work in a cooperative fashion. To know that at the same time, the village was clearly developing those ordinances for consideration in such a short time frame. I don't believe that reflects the spirit of cooperation that we should all endeavor towards. This board is comprised of 7 elected officials. The reason is that the collective wisdom of 7 is greater than 1 or 2, or 3, or even 5. More than a year ago, we had a special board meeting on June 9th. There were 5 persons present. There was a momentous motion, a very significant motion, made and passed in that evening that fundamentally altered the course of the Lakefront Master Plan and caused great consternation within the community and continues to do so. I was particularly disappointed in the actions of Commissioners Root and Rapp for walking out of the meeting, disallowing this board to arrive at a majority opinion that could be expressed to the village board. We can't act individually. We can only act as a board. We can speak our mind as individuals, as I am now. But personally, I'm very disappointed. I have spent years to study, to seek to understand, patiently listen, to offer my opinion, to take input. And candidly, given the speed with which the village has acted in these ordinances, I look up there, they had one meeting with great presentations from the IDNR and the Army Corps and their lawyer. We held 3 open houses. January, March, and April. Only one of the sitting trustees showed up to those open houses. The subject matter expertise lies amongst this board, who has carefully studied these issues, and yet the actions taken by the board, by the village board, appear to me to be clearly driven to supplant the judgment of this board. You know, right or wrong, we are separate units of government. We have the responsibility of programming, deciding what the uses should be. The village has zoning authority, yes they do, but in the spirit of intergovernmental cooperation, there should be some deference given to this body who's taken the time to study these issues, listen to all the community input. I'm uncomfortable continuing in the board liaison positions because candidly, Commissioner Root, I'm not sure that it is necessary or appropriate that you would represent this body. I think it's much more appropriate that Commissioner Cotto would represent this body in the liaison role with the village of Winnetka. That's my personal opinion.
Do I get to respond? Okay, Commissioner James, since I joined this board, you have attacked me in public, singling me out. This will be the 5th time. You have asked for my resignation verbally on 3 successive occasions. My response to you, sir, is that you should have attended these village meetings. You were on holiday, you were not there. I think what you may come to find out, that the work that has been ongoing by the village has been ongoing for a considerable period of time. Since December 6th, they have worked very, very hard. We are the only North Shore community that does not have regulations and protections on the lakefront. The fact that it took December 6th of last year for our village council to understand they had concurrent jurisdiction is somewhat surprising, but I think what it relates to is that there was a community that worked harmoniously, and you have riparian owners who truly respected the lake, respected the village, and acted accordingly. Things have changed dramatically during the last 4 or 5 months. And as far as being village liaison, my role is simply to come back to you and tell you what's transpired in a meeting. I do not lobby, I do not interact or affect anything because that's not my job as a single commissioner. We've been instructed by council that we operate only as a whole and as a board. But quite frankly, Commissioner James, I'm sick and tired of you personally attacking me. I work very hard as a commissioner. We have differing views. We don't agree. But that is all right. That, in the end of the day, is good because it brings balance. So, and to accuse the village of singling out the park district, I think is absolutely absurd. I mean, they are looking at their own street endings, they're looking at protecting open lands, and that was a 2 platforms of the Village 2040 plan that the village approved this past year dealt with the protection of natural resource and the protection of open lands. So I think you're mistaken here, and I would encourage you, you know Chris Renz very well. I'd encourage you to sit down and talk to him because you might learn that what you've just suggested is very incorrect. So I would encourage you to do that. Thank you for your time and listening to me, but I'm tired of this. The personal attacks, I want you to stop.
I'm not attacking you personally.
Well, you did.
Suggesting that twice now, separate occasions, you acted in a way that resulted in a significant decision being rendered by less than the majority of the elected officials. I also think that knowing that this body called for a special meeting solely in response to the purposeful action on the part of the village, publishing on Friday, June 30th, considering on Thursday, July 6th, the time frame, you know, is it obvious that it's too short for this board to be able to react. So this board takes the action of calling for a special meeting. And after all the time and energy that staff put in to pull off the 4th of July Independence Day celebration, and then to have to, you know, suck it up one more night to come into a meeting and not allow the board to arrive at a considered opinion so that this board could then go express its opinion to the village. I think it's disrespectful to walk out of the meeting. I don't think it's appropriate. Certainly, we don't always get what we want out of this board. But on June 9th, 2022, despite the fact that I was quite certain that this was not be the decision of the 7 elected officials, we dutifully took the vote, accepted the outcome. The next day, the permits were withdrawn. Just suggest that careful consideration be given to everyone, staff, the community, or fellow board members. Couldn't possibly understand what would drive you in such a what I consider a lesser issue to get up and walk out, and I think it's disrespectful. So,
May I speak on what motivated me? I mean, do you want to take time to do this evening? Because I'm happy to do it.
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah. We're talking about intergovernmental cooperation, but I was rather astounded when, before we as commissioners could have a discussion about these draft village ordinances, we had council who more or less was directing us on how we should think and what we should say by preparing an entire legal opinion that was presented to this board in advance. I've never seen anything quite like that. And then we talk about governmental cooperation, and I asked you a question, sir, and the question I asked you was, if we do not file a protest, can the Park District, if they are so inclined, move forward with litigation without the precursor of the protest? And you answered me and said they could. So I thought, okay, we don't have to go to the village and rub their nose in the fact that we disagree with what they're doing. I mean, if we are so inclined to so disagree with them, then, and if this board is determined to move forward, we can litigate the issue. So I couldn't quite see the reason why. I saw this as nothing more than the Park District trying to go to the village and discipline them, quite frankly, for all of the work that they have entered into with the 2040 plan and also since December 6th. I thought it was totally inappropriate. So that was a motivator to me. And then when, Madam President, you called the question, when we had not had the ability to discuss this issue further and initiated a vote, I thought, I can't participate in a vote where I'm condemning my village on something they've worked so hard with. So that was, so you know, that was my motivator. And also we have procedures. And if you are going to move forward with a proposal, as you did on July, whatever it was, I've lost track of dates, I would think you'd want to build consensus. I would think you, Madam President, would have wanted to talk to each of us about this and tell us your plan for this. But instead we walk in and here is, you know, here's this legal opinion, and we're going to sanction and attack our village. There was no effort to build unity or consensus.
I think you're, I'm sorry.
Well, I would say a couple things. I did call each commissioner. I did have to call them on the 4th of July. We did issue an opinion. It was shared with every commissioner. I did not want to politic. I simply wanted to say, this is what our legal advice is. This is what I think the approach should be for this meeting, and I wanted feedback. Do people agree or do people not agree with the approach that I plan to take? Several people called me back. I had several conversations. I felt like we had sort of a plan of attack. And I have enormous respect for Adam Simon, but I also know that you are a lawyer and that we have independent thinkers on this board. And that even if Adam Simon renders an opinion, that we don't necessarily have to follow it lockstep. And consequently, I'd like to credit the members of this board with some intelligence and some understanding of our relationship with the village and be able to make a decision on our own. I had no idea who would vote or how. I had no idea what the questions would be. I've been accused of writing questions for people on this board, which I did not have time to do on July 4th. And I think what Adam Simon delivered to us was exactly what I asked him to deliver, which was his opinion and his analysis. Because we are a separate taxing body. And it is important to know what our rights are. And when your rights are being diminished, it's important to stand up for them. There is no teeth to a protest, except it's a simple protest. And you should be able to say your piece. And it's in a very measured fashion. No one's pounding the table, no one's yelling. I pointed out with Adam's help a couple of areas where I felt that they could improve their process. That's it.
Can I say something more? You just said that the village has been working on this legislation for some lengthy period of time. I presume that you were aware of this, and yet nobody else on this board was aware of this.
I've been attending every commission meeting since.
But the publication of notice at the 11th hour, the actual documents being released at 5 o'clock on a Friday of a holiday weekend for consideration Thursday, that action does not say we want to work with you, especially when just a week or so prior there was a meeting between the presidents of the board. So I would suggest that a better approach is not to litigate with the village, but to seek a joint meeting. So that, because there's so much misinformation out there. When I hear the public comments, be it at the village, and I listen to the meetings, they're taped, or here, there's so much misinformation, there's so much misunderstanding. Even you, Commissioner, at the last meeting, you said, why are we talking about Centennial? I thought all we were doing was Elder. No, the motion passed, the resolution passed on May 25th, phase 1, addressed Elder and Centennial.
Let's talk about this.
No, let me finish. Let me finish. And thus, if even you can say, gosh, I don't know why we're talking about Centennial, it says to me that there's still misunderstanding. So I would suggest that we invite the village board to either join us, or we could join them, or we could meet on the beach, so that we can walk and seek to understand what exactly our priorities are and how they manifest themselves in the current plan.
Okay, I'm going to ask if there are any other comments that want to be made. I think you wanted to speak. I think somebody else did.
Commissioner Rapp.
Okay. So just to lay out the timeline, in February, Commissioner Root had suggested that we talk about zoning in response to the comments made by President James at the time to the village, and that was rebuffed. Okay, so there was an opportunity for us to talk about it and think about it.
Right, but zoning isn't our purview. We don't zone. We don't zone.
No, but there was definitely a proposal to advance a specific type of zoning.
Right,
So-
but that's not our decision. That's
No.
the village's decision.
No, it's fine. It is the village's decision. But there was interest in discussing a position on that at an earlier time. The village information came out, we needed to scramble for a special meeting. There were proposals circulating around that we could do a straw poll by email. There was also things circulating around that we did not necessarily need to meet. I expressed the position that we needed to meet if you wanted to take action. In retrospect, I was fine to not take any action. But there was a contingent and a segment of the board that wanted to take action, which necessitated a meeting.
I think we needed to meet.
We did need to meet.
Yeah.
We did need to meet and discuss and figure things out. I can tell you that sitting here, I did not like the direction of that the meeting was taking during the comments. I came in with an open mind. I listened, I observed, I asked questions, and then I expressed my opinion by leaving, which is a completely valid action under our rules. It is a completely valid action. It is like a filibuster in the Senate. You can operate within your rules to express what you believe is right.
I think it's disappointing
But the whole thing was disappointing.
we only had one ordinance that we discussed, and we had 3 other ordinances, and no one in the public heard your comments on the other 3 ordinances. So that's, anyway, Eric, if you want to follow up.
I would agree with comments that Commissioner Root has stated. I think given where the village is today and everything that's going on, it's imperative that the village of Winnetka and the Park District work together. And, you know, I think we need to work towards finding that solution, because our goal since day one has been preservation of the beach and bluffs and restoration of our beaches and bringing them back to the community. We're all in agreement there. And the question is, how are you going to get there? But I think what we need to do is have a team in place that will represent that one voice of the Park District. And today, in your conversations with trustees, it is yourself and Commissioner Rapp, correct? So the actions on July 5th, to me, just challenged my faith in your function in that role, Commissioner Rapp. And so I'd like to make a motion to remove you from those conversations with the village and give Christina Cotto, President, an opportunity to determine the appropriate person to be in that role next door.
I would say that I didn't put myself forward for that role, so
Fair enough.
I'm happy to serve in whatever capacity. I think that when we have a more unified voice and we can come together and we can discuss our issues, I'm happy to represent the board opinion. On this particular issue, we did not.
At this point, I'm going to ask Eric Lusson as the vice president, because the usual negotiating team is the president and the vice president, if he would join me in representing the Park District in village negotiations.
Does that require?
I don't think it requires a vote. I think liaison assignments are. Do you need a vote?
If you did, you couldn't do it tonight.
Yeah.
We didn't in the annual meeting. I don't know.
I mean, to whatever degree, if it needed a vote, it could be done at any time during the year, but it's not on the agenda tonight.
Okay. So we can put it on the agenda for August, and just to make it crystal clear. Are there any other comments on these issues? Staffing, liaison assignments? All right, I'm going to move to remarks from visitors. Remarks from visitors is your opportunity to address the board on any issue. When called upon, please come to the center position in front of the commissioners at the podium, state your name, and speak directly to the board. Kindly keep all comments close to 3 minutes. This is not necessarily a question and answer forum, so please don't expect a response this evening. It may come out in topics discussed. If you prefer to share your comments in writing, you may use the comment cards which are available near the sign-in sheets. Any Park District staff will accept your card to be shared with the board. Do we have any, yes?
Joanna Carrazas, I live on Providence. I just want to say, I'm so thankful that Commissioner Rapp and Ruth walked out that night. It was a pivotal moment. Also, I want to say that all this retreating into everything procedural and losing sight of what is at stake. The village trustees are acting to try to spare the bluffs, which you have seen have disappeared on 300 plus feet of south of Centennial. I think that should be like an ice pick in your heart. Instead, it's, oh, that wasn't how we were supposed to do it, and I mean, think about it. You really need to think about this. I really don't think going on and on about who has the power and going to a protest. What were you going to protest? For what? So that's all I want to say.
Thank you for that. Are there any other people that would like to speak publicly? Thank you. May I have a motion to go into closed session pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/section 2C1 for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body. 5 ILCS 120, section 2C5 for the purchase or lease of property. 5 ILCS 120/2C6 for the setting of a price for sale or lease of property. 5 ILCS 120/2C11 for litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Eric. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lesson?
Yes.
Commissioner Hemmings?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Rapp?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodo?
Yes.
That motion passes.
Can I just make a quick announcement?
Yes.
Unless we have something specifically scheduled following closed session, which that's the only way we can have a meeting in which we discuss something or vote on something after closed session. We would have to list that on the agenda, and we have nothing on the agenda. So, point being, we have nothing to talk about after closed session, but to close the meeting. So, just
You're released.
to confirm.
Genuinely much
You're
released.
All right, so we'll stop the recorder, and we will take a 5